What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Black Line Brief. I'm your host, Matthew McCammon. Today, we have a special guest, Jon Aaron Bray. Welcome to the show, dude.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you being here. I know that, so a lot of people, I'm going to set the stage on kind of how we even began to start questioning another possible theory other than the official 30-06 lone gunman magic bullet theory, right? Was when initially the videos started coming out and we see the shirt movement before you see a wound, and then you see the weird wound after the shirt comes back down and then shows the neck. And then we see the necklace break and fly up over his head, which would take an enormous amount of energy. And then also his body posturing, whether that be the decorticate posturing that we see with his locking up, or even just how he ends up getting kind of jolted back and up. It just didn't fit with, and then the no exit wound, right? It just didn't fit a 30-06, right? Is that kind of where you started like trying to think of other possible explanations?
Yeah, I mean, it looks so weird to me that my initial impression was like, wow, somebody AI faked a video showing Charlie getting killed. Like, wow, people hate this dude so much that they're making fake videos trying to go viral that he got killed. And then I kept looking and I saw a second video and I was like, wait, you can't make two random videos that look, from different angles showing the same weirdness. That just made me realize it wasn't fake. Then I immediately looked at the news, saw the news, saying that he was shot. And then even the first few witnesses were saying that he was shot in the chest. Like there was a guy in a Trump hat with his wife next to him that were in the front crowd. And they said, Charlie got shot in the chest, blood came squirting out from under his shirt. So after looking at those two angles, hearing the first few witnesses say he was shot in the chest, I was pretty convinced he had a bulletproof vest on, and we were seeing an impact of a 30-06 in the vest, and the vest failed to stop it. Either ricocheted or, kind of caught the edge of the vest and sent it into his neck. Because the neck wound was it's nothing about the neck wound shows any signs of a high velocity impact, especially from a 30-06. Sorry, it's just
the spray, right? Would have been what is it called? The actual term, the high
spatter, blood spatter, and high velocity blood spatter. It would have atomized the blood. You would have had like a pink mist, and then it would have ruptured every vein and artery in that neck. So we would have seen his heart pulsing, for the few beats that would have been left. Like it would have been squirting blood everywhere. It would have been a grotesque scene. Not that the scene wasn't grotesque, but it would have been a whole level that, there would have been blood everywhere. The backdrop behind them would have had blood on it. Like, just nothing that we saw indicated that. And then the shirt movement, just when they changed, they hard pivoted and they made it obviously wasn't shot in the chest. The shirt movement just couldn't make sense to me. Like the collar raising up next to his face, and then like the magnet you see kind of like go over across, and then we see, I was probably, I don't know, a day, 48 hours later, we get the videos from the side and you see the collar on the back stretching out. It's just like none of it. The more we saw, the less what they were telling us made sense.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of prior military, so veterans, whether they be, just like, basic military guys like me, or guys that were like special operations guys, Delta, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, the majority, well, even Gary in the beginning was like, there's no way it's a 30-06. And he started to try to figure out what could explain it. And so many people started postulating that, he had to wear body armor. But then more videos came out where you could clearly see his nipples under his shirt, and you can clearly see the outline of the necklace and the pendant underneath. And then you see the video of Blake Bednards posted it on X, I don't know, a while ago, when they're carrying him off and his shirt gets lifted up and you can see everything underneath. He doesn't have a vest on, and he surely doesn't have any squibs or, freaking tubing for overpressurization to fake a Hollywood, wound.
Yeah. I mean, it would be, we had so many like high definition photo stills of him throughout the crowd. It's like 360-degree view of Charlie before the event. He walks out of the SUV He tossed his hats around, and then he sits down and does the interview. Like, there was no time for them to do any prep work. There was
No.
nothing connected to him other than the microphone that he would pick up and set down every once in a while. Like, there was just nothing there to indicate that, that they were preparing to, fake Charlie's death.
Correct.
It's just very difficult to pull that off, even if you had, Charlie disappear, out of a ninja smoke. It would still be hard to do. But if you have them going throwing hats around and having pictures taken of them, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, and geez, I don't even want to, so because I know like he gave you a hard time. Jordan Henshaw's giving you a hard time. I give him a hard time because he claims to have done all of these tests and recreated things. He hasn't actually like really recreated anything. He's made the shirt puff up. That's all he's done. He can't actually recreate anything with an overpressurization because the amount of energy needed to actually recreate what we saw to Charlie, you'd have to use an explosive to do what we saw that day.
Yeah, we were like sub 5 millisecond movements. I mean, you're not going to do that with expanding gas. But
yeah,
you could slow the videos down and do a single angle at a time, and it may look similar. But when you add the whole event together and you really like look at the math of the energy involved in it, it's well beyond what any compressed gas could reproduce.
And that's what, like, you bring such a very, unique approach to this because of your experience. Can you give, most people should know of you by now. Some people may not. And so maybe give a brief, like, little background on, what makes you so knowledgeable in all of this.
Well, I was blessed enough to be raised in a industrious family. My father was basically the leading expert of textile technology processing. So, I spent my life installing industrial equipment, seeing him design plants, implement, some of the biggest plants in America processing textiles. And then because of that, I got introduced to CO2 technology, using liquefied CO2 under high pressure to basically replace industrial solvents. And because of that work, I ended up working with the Army to develop a program to refurbish the bulletproof vest during the Afghanistan-Iraq war. They were basically sending soldiers out with no vest not because they didn't have them, but because they were dirty, sitting in central issue facilities all over the country. So they came to us in Nashville, Tennessee. We developed a protocol to test different technologies. They ended up selecting the technology that I designed for them, using enzymes and a small amount of water to basically clean and refurbish these vests. And then we contracted with them for about 18 months. Every central issue facility in America, every base, I was taking truckloads of vests, cleaning them, getting them back out so soldiers could have a clean vest to go out and protect them when they're out war fighting.
Yeah.
And that exposed me to, the biggest threat then was IED. So I got to see all the manuals from all the IED, basically people to identify, diffuse, and, understand the threat that we're dealing with, because these vests had to perform when we sent them out. So a lot of ballistic tests, a lot of, deep science. And then I just kind of got to see the inner workings of the government. And that learned me a lot. I learned that I didn't want to work with the government anymore. And that kind of primed me for, when I saw that, that's what really drew me in, because I thought it was a bulletproof vest at first. So, that's really what I was thinking, that I could take my prior knowledge with that and apply it and kind of figure out what happened. But the more I looked into it, the more I realized that, there was no vest.
Yeah.
And I was already in it at that point. I couldn't really stop. And the tools I started developing to kind of identify where the bullet hit in the vest turned out to kind of lead me into the realization that the epicenter of the movement was around that microphone.
Yeah.
And then all that IED kind of exposure, started clicking, and I just started putting the pieces together.
Right on. And then I saw someone mention in the chat while we were getting ready that, and I hadn't heard you talk about this, was that, but they had mentioned a show that you had been on, that one of the reasons why I think you care so personally about this is that I think you mentioned something about, if this had happened to your son,
Yeah,
right?
I was just talking about it at dinner. Like my son was saying crazy stuff about Charlie. Like he had no reason not to like Charlie. And I just quickly realized that, any kid could be radicalized. He's 16 years old and saying that, that he didn't think that Tyler did anything wrong if he did kill Charlie. I was just like taken back by it. And the more I asked him about it, I realized that these online communities, they create a culture of hate, and you don't really have to know why you hate the person. They just create a narrative that it's okay to hate them, and they can turn your child into a patsy or a bona fide murderer.
Yeah.
So that really led me to have a lot of empathy for Tyler's parents and Tyler himself. I was a young child. I was very impressionable. I did things that I regret now. I look back, and they could have changed my life if they went. The variables a little different. It could have been a life-changing event, and I was largely influenced just by the culture that was around. And it's a lot worse now, because back then I would have to go out and be exposed to that culture, but now that culture can happen in your bedroom.
Yeah, it comes to you now.
Yeah.
And I agree too. Like I grew up pretty broken home, didn't have a stable father figure, and I made a lot of bad choices and was very impressionable by like peer pressure and things like that. I mean, it's by the grace of God, and that I slowly made better decisions as I got older, but definitely feel for Tyler in the situation that he's in. I know people Zach Costello and I like Zach a lot. I follow him a lot. He did a debate with Gary, and he's not comfortable saying that he doesn't believe Tyler did it. I do feel comfortable saying that. But that's just my personal belief, because I don't think we've seen anything that actually puts definitively Tyler Robinson on campus on the Losi Center roof with the rifle. All the things that we've seen, it's not definitive that it's him. Where's the rifle? They want you to fill in the gaps. It's in his legs. No, it's not. It's in his backpack. No, it's not. When he's jumping off the roof, where's the rifle? You know what I mean? So
it's wrapped in a towel, but they take a picture of it in a box. It's just like, when you put all the pieces together, the narrative seems pieced together. And like you said, they want you to fill in the blanks. And then it's just character assassination on him. Anything they released about him was just to alienate him from the general population. So it'd be very easy for you to dehumanize him, say that he's not a part of my team.
Right.
He's a bad guy on the other team. Let's just take care of him, put him to death, and then we'll call this thing solved. And that's a mentality that they're trying to build, the narrative they're trying to build. And really, we get down to it, it's a psychological operation.
I agree with that. Yeah. And I mean, like, even with the so-called picture of the rifle, that turned out to not even be the rifle. That's just a picture that either the news, or I don't know if it was the local law enforcement or the feds, whoever initially released it. But that's just a picture they picked offline. That's not the actual Mauser, the 1900 World War I era rifle. That's a modern freaking rifle.
Yeah.
And that's supposedly the rifle the parents saw.
And how would that help, like, identify the shooter? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's no reason to release that other than just to build the narrative in people's heads that this kid is guilty. Nobody's gonna be like, oh, I saw that guy with that gun at the gun range. It's definitely him. Like, I understand showing the pictures of him walking around. That makes sense. That'll help identify the guy, help find him. But, releasing his online habits, that doesn't help.
No.
Releasing that he lived with a supposed tranny, that doesn't help.
No.
That was just all character assassination. It's just to build the narrative and allow people to dehumanize them.
Yeah. And I mean, like, even all right, I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something, I totally spaced out. All right. You want to start with, what do you want to start with?
Well, I would say the first thing to kind of just the shirt movement, since we kind of like started on that. It's a good primer for people to kind of understand, like, the issue with the narrative, that the shirt itself is just really hard to tie together with the narrative that they're telling us. So let's see.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, as you get that pulled up, the shirt movement is so bizarre that even when you see it even more so, it becomes so clear that when you slow down and you hit frame by frame and you see the back of the shirt puff out, and you actually see the necklace that it gets caught in a frame where it's lifted off of him before it breaks, and you can see it. It's like around this area. And then when it does snap and flies back over his head, some sort of force had to act upon the shirt and his necklace in order to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remove.
So,
okay, I got
let's
to remove that one.
You got me on the drive?
Yeah.
All right, good. We'll start with this one. This is these are the two angles that are from the side, the ones that really are the hardest to explain. Can you see this?
Yep.
All right, so we have the one on top is 60 frames per second from iPhone Pro 15. The one on the bottom is a same iPhone Pro 15, but it's at 30 frames per second. And if you look closely, you see the huge, I thought this was fake when I first saw it. I just couldn't explain it, how the 60 frame per second doesn't capture it, but the 30 frames per second does. And if you just watch it unfold, you can see that the 60 frame per second just captures like a ghost blur of the movement, where the 30 frames per second captures the whole thing.
Correct.
And it's just the difference of shutter speed. The shutter speeds are, they're not exact on each phone. They're not clicking each, a video is basically a bunch of still pictures put together. And so this event was so fast that it was in between the shutters of a 60 frame per second video, which is like 17 milliseconds. So, just you can't explain that sort of speed by anything else. And then we go from the huge hump on the back to this huge kind of like cavitation of flesh below it. So it's like from the hump on the above the shoulders to a hump kind of like in between the back of the shoulders. And we can't see that in the 60 frame per second video because the white hat guys in a way.
Yeah, Frank Turek.
Yeah, but you can see the necklace movement where, this is obviously after this frame where we can see the necklace is snapped right around where it would just be underneath that microphone. And in a single frame, it goes from a resting position where here it's basically, rested on his chest to almost halfway over his face.
Well, and I had a question real quick. Can you go back to where you just were? Right there in the bottom one, around this part of his neck, is that the necklace, that blurry?
Yes. You see this right here, and it's moving so fast that it's just a blur.
I went through your stuff before we going on today, and that was one of the things I'd written down I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, and let me cut this air compressor off. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah. While he does that, you guys all do this because I have it pulled up as well. And then I can open it and I can have it backed up.
Sorry about that. There's so much.
No, you're good.
There's a lot of equipment in here. It's hard for me to keep track of what's. Yeah. So basically, not only is that a blur, that necklace is moving so fast that it can't be seen at 30 frames per second, which is like, that's anything over 300 feet per second. But whatever that was fast enough to snap it and also send it to that sort of velocity up and over his face. Yeah. And another thing to notice is the shape of his face. You see this chin line?
Yes.
And if you notice, it's pushed out. You see the wave pushing out. So it's like if you take an air compressor, oddly enough, and you take the air gun of it and you blow it on your skin and how it creates a wave.
Yes.
We're seeing gas hit his face here, and it's you can see the ripples go across. It's a wave that you can tell the epicenter of the gas is hitting in this area, and it's pushing the flesh out in all directions. And you see the deformation in both the videos. You kind of see just the start of it here, and you can see it really propagate out here.
And when you could also see what it was doing to his hair. It was blowing his hair up as well in the back.
Yeah. And when you map it, you heat map it, you can see it, his whole silhouette lights up in the heat map where everything,
no way.
everything on his body, like it extends out, whereas the shockwave is so strong that basically it propagates through his whole body. People, the ring thing where his ring falls off, like,
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that.
yeah, that's the shockwave too. Like the
That's what I
shockwave
thought.
was sent through his entire body.
Yeah.
Another really odd thing is the sleeve. You see how the sleeve pulls up here?
Yes.
And it's basically where, we have expanding gas that's trying to, escape everywhere it can.
Yep.
And then we have this device on the opposite side of his face that's pulling his shirt up by his, and so when you pull your shirt up, what happens to the opposite armpit, right?
It tugs on it.
Yeah, it tugs on it. So we're seeing a combined effect of basically that tension of that shirt being stretched by his face, pulling the armpit, and then the gas escaping out, and that's what raises it up. And you see these creases. The lines on the garment kind of tell you where the tension is. So they're really good at kind of showing you where the main kind of main source of energy of the deformation of the fabric is. And immediately you see it rip. In one frame, we go from the sleeve being pulled up, right? Yep. You see in both of these videos, in the very next frame, boom, relaxes out. So it wasn't a long-term event. It was an extremely fast, short period that the shirt was under tension and there was gas escaping, and then it was gone.
Can you go back a frame?
Yep.
Right there, yeah. And do you think so? That deformation in the back, do you think that's actually his? You said something about like his flesh, or
yeah,
you think it actually is?
I believe that's his flesh, and I believe that majority of this is gas.
Okay, that was going to be one of my other questions. I initially thought the movement in the back of the shirt was the necklace. As the necklace was jolted, it like pulled it up, but the necklace is out. The necklace is up there.
Yeah, and the odd thing about the necklace, which I didn't really understand until Candace released the back view of the video, the necklace is like a fulcrum on his left shoulder. It doesn't really move from his left shoulder. So, the necklace was snapped and it moved. The dramatic movement we saw was largely from the snap over.
Right.
And it didn't really move that much on his left shoulder. It kind of stayed rested. It stretched it out from the momentum, but it never jumps or raises from the left shoulder.
And what I think is, right, so he has, I have it in I could show it later, but he has 3 pendants on the necklace. He has a cross, he has a St. Michael, and then he has a smaller one. And the cross gets stuck here in his shirt as it flies up over his head, and it kind of pulls it to the back where it eventually gets stuck. And I don't know, we never see what happens to the St. Michael pendant after that day, but it definitely gets stuck on the left side. It doesn't pull up as much.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why we see the necklace hanging out as they carry him away.
Yes.
The necklace would have just slid out of his shirt, right?
Correct.
When they're carrying him. There had to be some means for it to
hold on to something.
Hold on to something.
Yeah.
And the amount of energy that's a square link necklace. I can only assume that when it snapped, that it didn't snap cleanly, that there was, probably some deformation of the metal, and that it was large enough to make it where it couldn't slide through the pendant. So it basically stuck on the pendant stuck in the shirt like a fish hook, and that kept the necklace from just falling out of his shirt.
And I don't know if you know, but I've gone back and I've looked at so many videos of Charlie from beforehand, and I found one of him where it actually shows the kind of clasp that it is. It's a very heavy duty clasp. It's not a normal clasp. And so it broke not in the clasp, correct?
Yeah.
It broke in the middle of the chain.
Definitely. It definitely broke in the middle of the chain. And the speed at which it broke to, it just wouldn't, a clasp break would be like someone snapping on it, right? Pulling tension on it.
Right.
And we know that didn't happen because the necklace never really moves from the left shoulder. Like whatever snapped it was a very direct energy, like a cutting type of energy. It wasn't from it being tugged and breaking. Another weird thing to look at is that you can kind of get an idea of the rotation of the microphone by looking at the magnetic clasp. So we just see a little black speck of it here on both videos.
Yep.
And then the first frame of movement, you see it raise up, and it's kind of in its same orientation that it had when it was on his shirt. But then it takes a turn, and you can see it kind of turn long ways. And what I didn't really notice about it at first is that there we go. So we see the length of it now.
Yep.
There's no case connected to this anymore. Like the case is 45 millimeters by 44 millimeters. The magnetic clasp is a great deal smaller than that. We're just seeing the clasp connected to the clip, the back plate of the case of the microphone. The silhouette of the case disappears as soon as we see the necklace move. We no longer see the silhouette of that case anymore. And it was a big case. Like it was a very every picture of Charlie before the event, it was super obvious that he had a square microphone under his shirt because it was bulging out. Like it was placed on him in a precarious position where it was actually on the narrow side sticking out. So it was basically like a 44 millimeter hunk of plastic sticking out from his chest with a magnetic clasp set on top of it. And it's just not there after the event. Like you just, there's not a single frame where you see the full square 44
underneath. Correct.
Yeah.
And I think what you did too, and I think it's in one of your later, files on the drive, that the line of sight becomes so much more possible, especially as the way that he was sitting, right? And you talk about the muscles and how he rolls his shoulders forward, but also as it separated, that primer explosion. I don't know if that's the correct terminology.
Yeah, absolutely. When we see it here, how it's raised from his chest.
Yes.
So it basically increases the angle, like the trajectory works even when it's rested on his chest.
Exactly.
And every centimeter that it raises off of his chest, the trajectory just becomes easier.
Yes. One thing I had a question on initially was, do you think that the placement, it's almost rhetorical because I went back and looked. I was suspicious of how they placed the mic on his shirt that day and thought it was different. But here, let me show you something. I went up and found all of these previous clips of him wearing the exact same one. Let me pull it up real quick here. Let me see if I can make it bigger. So it's crooked here too. Let me make it bigger. I wish I could enhance this, but it's much like it was that day where it's put weird and the shirt is folded all funny because of it. And you could even see the thing underneath of it there as well. And then I found this one is a little bit more clear, where it's just sitting pretty nicely on his shirt right there. And then there's one more where you actually see, and I don't know, is this the exact one, but it's on the outside now, or is this an older model?
No, that is the mic. That's how I was able to track down the exact model. When they first got the mic.
Correct.
This is the first style that they mounted it. They had the windbreaker on the end of the microphone pickup, and they mounted it on the outside of his shirt.
Yeah.
And then you see him slowly evolve. They bought the magnetic clasp, and then they go from kind of like mounting it in a center position to the far left to this style. And this style of mount is kind of what they settled on.
Yeah. And you could see too here, you do get weird folds and it's kind of at this angle. So, I mean, I kind of initially thought, let me remove this and put yours back up there. I initially thought that it looked really weird how it was placed on his shirt that day. And that maybe, because part of the theory, right, was that the wound in the neck was an accident, right?
Yeah, because that's me speculating, but I put my mind in the mind of a conspirator, right? If I was going to try to assassinate Charlie and have a patsy set up for it for a 30-06 impact, it would work if the neck wound wasn't there. If we saw Charlie, if we saw the shirt move like we all saw it, and Charlie just fell over, and we saw him carried over, and they said he was shot in the chest and he died, there would be nothing really to go on to say that wasn't the truth. It would be weird. It wouldn't be exactly what you would expect from a 30-06 impact, but it looked powerful. that the way the
Right.
shirt moved, it looked powerful, and he falls over dead, and that's kind of like, that would be enough for most people just to pass it over. I would have never looked at it twice. It was the fact that we saw the shirt move like we did, and then 4.44 seconds later, we see a rectangle wound start to bleed from his neck with jugular blood. That's what brought my attention to it. So in my mind, if you look at that fact, and then you look at the reactions of the people around them, that were, if you look at the people's reactions to hearing that mock cone pass over, that crack of that rifle, there was at least half the security jumped, like they were like it was shocked them. But there were certain individuals that didn't move at all. They were just cool as a cucumber. And it wasn't until that we see blood, pouring out of his jugular, that they seem shocked and they jump into action.
Why do you think that is?
You could only assume that they at least had to have some, either they have nerves of steel, and, a bullet crack and someone jumping doesn't shock them, or they were expecting something and they didn't see it. And, they expected a rifle shot, and they expected, a shirt to jump. But when they saw blood squirting out of someone's neck, it shocked them. And that's when they react. And, people's first reactions to things are really natural. It's hard to fake it. And it's hard to fake being shocked by something, and just as hard as it is to fake not being shocked something by something. So I think the timing of their reaction is as telling as their reaction. And then when they get over the top of Charlie, it's like they had a corporate meeting on how do we handle this. It wasn't. It didn't seem like there was a team of people trying to save Charlie's life. It seemed like a team of people trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do? What's the, and you have to assume that, like, they trained for this, right? They should have jumped right into their training and been, like a well-oiled machine, but it didn't seem that way. It seemed like it was just a bunch of guys kind of looking at each other, a dude cutting on his meta glasses. And then, they just, the way they threw Charlie to the ground, it seemed like it was more about reducing the amount of time that we saw Charlie after the event than it was about saving Charlie.
Yeah, and I agree. So, I mean, and the argument would be that that's because the way that they planned for it, and the, the outcome that they had planned and expected to see is not what ended up happening. And so they were calling an audible on the scene in front of thousands of people with cameras. And so they were trying to be very subtle. So we didn't see much, but we saw enough that looked like they were trying to communicate with one another very subtly while keeping Charlie down under the view of people. There's the table with, the cloths over them, and then telling each other, getting him ready so that they could get him to the car as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is the trajectory. So, this is a lot of people's arguments that,
there's no way it could have hit
the shrapnel couldn't cross his chest and hit his neck, when it absolutely could. You see, Charlie was holding the microphone in between his legs. His shoulders are pulled forward.
Yes.
You see it.
He rolls them forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And his posture is not upright. Like he's
it's not good posture.
He's hunched. Right.
Yes.
And so you could see from the silhouette, I'm not even hunched as much as Charlie is here.
Right.
My shoulders aren't pulled any more forward than Charlie's shoulders are. We're roughly he's a few inches taller than me, so we're similar body shape.
Yeah.
And I have the microphone against my chest in a similar position, and the trajectory absolutely works. And that's not even taking into account that the microphone raises from his chest during the event, right? So you can see that it definitely is in the exact same area that we see the wound. And if you look closely at the deformation of the wound, that's the type of deformation you see. It's like a pulling to that same trajectory,
right? Like on that skin and on the flesh.
Yeah, you see it hump out this way. It isn't radial, right? If this was a rifle impact, it would be radial all the way around.
Yes, correct.
And that's not what we see. So again, it's just more indication that that what we saw there, particularly this frame here, you could see the tension of the shirt, right? It's getting pulled in this direction. The microphone's going to, everything's telling you the trajectory is from here to over here, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I see that it's at an upward angle that way
Yep.
towards his left side. You can see how it's pulling on it through the letters. You see the shirt.
Yep. The peak is the E, in between the E and the D.
Yes,
So
it even distorts the letters. Yeah.
yeah. And so when you see, there's a video that's from the far left side, and you can see how narrow this peak is, where it's no bigger than a half inch. So this was not just like a ballooning of the shirt from gas. This was a thin
Correct.
object.
Yeah.
That it's hard to see because of this white background on a white shirt, but it actually has a square silhouette. And that square silhouette's the same size of the microphone, and there's a good reason for that, because the object that we see right here, you see this square silhouette,
Yeah, I do.
and then you see the rest of the object. If you look close, there's circuitry on that board. I've done this board has a blue tint to it, and I couldn't really understand that at first before I bought the actual microphone that Charlie had. I was running the analysis to try to find green tint, because most circuit boards have a green solder mask on it.
Right. Yeah.
And even the other Rode models have a green solder mask, but his was a Rode Pro, and that Pro model has a blue solder mask on it. So this is two times bluer than the surrounding areas. And so when I mapped out, because we have a view of the microphone clasp here, so I can get the amount of pixels that this area takes up, and I know the exact dimensions of this microphone clasp. So then I can measure this pretty accurately. And it's the exact same shape as the circuit board. So we have the color of the circuit board, the dimensions of the circuit board, the trajectory of where the circuit board was. So it's very hard just to write off when you have multiple, forensic details
like
that are
indicators,
tangible, right? That way, the multiple cameras, it's not an artifact. Multiple cameras saw this. Multiple cameras picked up the spectrum. It's hard just to write it off. And then when you take into account that the wound that we see on his neck is the same size and shape as the battery, and the battery's connected to the circuit board. So we see the wound after the circuit board falls and the shirt falls. And it's a very peculiar wound that seems like a medium velocity impact that only penetrates deep enough to break the jugular right behind here. Yeah. And so, when you add all these factors together, it becomes pretty clear that the wound was caused by the shrapnel, just like the shirt movement was caused by the shrapnel. And, the shrapnel, the equal and opposite force of the explosion, I hear that a lot. People are like, oh, well, there has to be an equal and opposite force to launch a projectile, but it wasn't a projectile. The projectile we saw was a gas jet, and we see it through the hump of the back of the shirt, and that's already over. This is the equal and opposite waste energy from that, throwing the innards of the microphone that housed the explosive across his chest. Right. And so, it's a secondary event, and that's why it was lower energy. It was just enough energy to penetrate his jugular, but not enough to break any other vasculars in there, not enough to even penetrate deep enough where the battery stayed in his neck. You see the battery fall out shortly thereafter. So,
in that clip, you could also see and this is what I want to explain to people. So the magnet that you see on the outside, there's obviously another magnet on the inside of the shirt holding it together. But what's behind that is the bigger part of the actual mic. That's the part that we saw in that other photo I showed you of him where he had it on the outside of his shirt. That's the part that has the battery, the circuit board. That's where the micro-shaped charge would be. That would be the thing that's moving. Do you think the magnet still stayed together? Like the magnet on the outside and inside, and that's why we see the outside of the magnet stay where it is? Because
the clip and the magnet stayed together. The body of the microphone is what basically I was hoping I had the diagram of it in here. But the body of the microphone shattered, and then all that was left was the back plate and the clip, and that's basically what we see still attached to the shirt. And that's why the size of kind of the what you would expect that we saw throughout the day, it disappears. We only see the leftover remnants of the microphone. We don't see the actual full mic anymore.
Yeah. You do have the diagram of the mic. It's in here.
Yeah, I'll show. This is what I was talking about, that the particular angle where you can see the how thin the object that raises his shirt up. So you see this is from that front angle, it looks like, you know, like his whole shirt is bulged, but in reality it's a pretty thin profile that raised his shirt up.
Because you could see it's like a teepee. The fabric that is around it is coming back down, so it is like a smaller piece of material that's actually pulling the shirt up.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the whole shirt bulging up like it would if there was just a gas expansion that caused it. This was a very,
you can see it in the black one. It's very
very thin object that caused it, and it was you know, super fast. This is a single frame. The next frame, it's gone. You don't see it at all. So it's not something that you can just really just write off. It's something that's different than what you would expect.
Right.
Let's see if I can.
I have it.
Okay, let's see.
I already got it. Yeah. Let me share this one. I found it while you were showing that. So let me. This one, right?
Yep. So that's pre-event, and you can see the dimensions of it, and then, you know, in these highlighted videos, you can really see that that's an 18 millimeter edge of the microphone. So that's basically the thickness of it, and then it's 44 millimeters square, a little bit longer on one side than it is the other. And immediately after we see that necklace break, we don't see that dimension there anymore. The depth is gone, and then the width is disappeared to just basically the width of the microphone clasp, and then the length is slightly shorter. It's like 27 millimeters left, and that's the clip here that you see.
This is the only part everyone sees right here, right? And this is the part that had the battery, the circuit board, and the micro shaped charge explosive that's in there, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And because the dimensions it's too thin to have a charge. You know, these charges depend on creating a jet, so they have to have a certain amount of length for them to be able to function. Right. And the smallest charge they can make is a 10 millimeter charge, and so they make those for drones. When you see these drones dropping on people and blowing up, or like dropping on tanks and armored vehicles, they're using these 10 millimeter shaped charges, and that's the diameter of it, and the length of it is about 25 millimeters. And so if you place that at the very back of that microphone, you have just enough space where it has the correct amount of standoff space, and it fits within that 18 millimeters, and you can still fit the circuit board. Now all you have to do is just reposition the battery, turn it 90 degrees, and you know, the majority of the space in that circuit board is just a big rubber spacer. So you know, you trim a rubber spacer, you move the battery to the side. Someone could use that microphone for years and never know any different. It wouldn't feel any different. It wouldn't operate any different. Like, you would have to break
that. Yeah, we know that from what happened with the pagers, right? They were in circulation in use for 10 years, and this technology was, you know, years old now. They would have much more modern, more, you know, up to date technology in this, you know, exploding pager, exploding mic arena. But yeah, they used it. They made it. They took it through airports. It passed everything. It was fully functional. Nobody knew.
Yeah. And their ability to create a remotely detonated shaped charge has increased greatly because of drone warfare. Like, it's probably the most studied, you know, type of weapon currently. Like, there's probably 20 different companies that are developing, you know, micro shaped charges that are light, small, concealable, and can be remotely detonated with precision. So it's not science fiction. It's not something, you know, that would you wouldn't have to look far to find someone capable of making it for you.
And I mean, like, I think it's very, very interesting that the very that the country that we think is implicated in this, right? The country that, you know, was giving Charlie so much flack at the end of his life, their intelligence, the Mossad actually were the ones that developed this and used it and proved it in practice that it worked. And then they did it with walkie-talkies, right? But
yeah, the day after they did it with the pagers, they did it with the walkie-talkies, and we still don't know how they detonated the walkie-talkies. Like, it's still a mystery. We understand they hacked the cellular system to send a special signal to the pagers.
right.
We don't know how they detonated the walkie-talkies. It was assumed they sent a radio signal, but there was batteries that were on the chargers not connected to the radios that went off. And most people don't know this, but there was actually solar battery backups that exploded also. So, and they tried to say that was just random. It was a hot day. And that's why I was like, okay, that's just tech that you don't want us to know about yet.
100%.
Yeah.
Wow. And then, this, I don't know at what point, if you want to go over it now or later, but that, the accurate energetic systems plant that actually was, there was a contract, right, that was placed in the beginning of 25, right? Was it?
Yep.
And then it was finished on August 24th or 25th.
Delivered.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And so, and that contract was to create micro shape charges just like this, correct?
10 millimeter by 28 millimeter shape charges. When you read it, they don't tell you what they're for. It doesn't have an explicit, use.
Right.
And it was a no bid contract, basically. Their AES is the only people that can press high explosive into like capsule shapes. So, when you want shape charge that's really small, they're pretty much the only people that can make it. And
they're the only ones. Well, they were. Are they?
I guarantee you they probably didn't miss a lick. They just started a new building and started.
Yeah, let me show that too. That the plant. A lot of people.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, an explosion and a fire. It must have, there was nothing left. It went from a fully functional production facility to just a slab. Not one piece of the building was left. Like every millimeter of that building was absolutely destroyed and turned just to confetti, basically. Like, you don't even see any large pieces of the building around it.
Yeah. Let me make it bigger for everybody. So this is a before picture, right, on the left.
Yeah.
Okay. This is an after picture on the right. And then if you even look at the cars.
Yeah, just total destruction.
And this is the plant. It was Accurate Energetic Systems in Tennessee that was working on this government contract to create these micro shape charges that were, completed, and you said delivered on the 24th or 25th, correct?
Yep.
Of August. And then everyone that was there, or I'll put that up in a second, except for, so the plant manager that was there during the contract being filled actually was transferred the day before the explosion, correct?
No, he left.
Okay.
And he still, as far as I can tell, he still hadn't taken a position up anywhere. So it was, they had a new plant manager that was less than 30 days on the job that was there.
Can you imagine how evil does that plant manager that left have to be if he or he either knew and obviously left so that this didn't happen to him, and then knew whatever poor, schmuck was going to replace him, it was going to happen to him, or what? He's just the most luckiest guy in the world that left right before everyone, 16 or 18 people died.
16. I think it's increased though. It was 16 at first. I think that they had people that they weren't sure were there.
Wow.
And then later they found out that they were actually there. Yeah, it's pretty weird. And if you look at the year before, that summer before, he spent some weird times in buildings in California that had some very strange foreign names that also lived in around there. Yeah, it's a weird, I couldn't go any further with it just because, people aren't like tracking people isn't my thing. I'm just more about like replicating, data and having where I can make something that someone else can test to. But yeah, his history is the history and the timing. It's hard just to like pass over it and say it was just a coincidence.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason why this matters, you guys, is because, if this plant was, filling a government contract to create these microshaped charges for this event and it was used, and then we know what happened to Charlie, and what if we believe what happened to him is what happened to him, they would need to erase all possible ties back to them, back to whoever, and any evidence of it, right? Like, because imagine if they could find pieces of, is it cyclonite? What was the explosive used?
PETN. Yeah, if they
Okay.
find any residue of it, they can trace it back to the manufacturer. It has a signature. Like you have a certain amount of contamination that's left in it, and so you can tell who manufactured it by going back to the production lots. It would have the same, fingerprint of contamination left in it. And so the only way you ensure that no one ever figures out where it came from is that you get rid of the whole production lot
And the crime scene.
If you ever done any government contracting, like you have to keep records of everything. Like there's certain period of times where you'll keep control lots on hand. So if they have a problem out in the field, they can go, hey, we're having a problem. Can you show us your lots so we can test them, analyze them, see what? So they would have had, those lots that were produced and delivered, they would have still had some of those materials on hand. And that is a smoking gun. If someone finds one single fragment from anything around that area that can be tested, it could, provide them the links back to the manufacturer. And that's why we see the grass getting pulled up, because it's impossible to clean every blade of grass. Like it's just,
it
doesn't matter how many times you go over it. There could be a fragment left and someone could find it and get it tested. That's why the SUV got scrubbed and sold. Like any one fragment underneath the captain seat gets found by someone, gets tested, boom, it's a problem. So that's the strangeness of how they handled everything that was around Charlie after the event. Just again ties to that it was a very coordinated effort to ensure that there's no evidence left over.
Right, like a deliberate cover-up, because of how damning it would be if anything left, whether that be some of the plastic, like the ABS plastic that was in the car or in the grass, or the explosive that, if I remember right, if it gets on you, it could even cause seizures and things like that.
Yeah.
Right? So imagine the kids, the students, going and sitting down on the grass and sitting down and like just having a seizure because they, this got on their skin. And then the whole investigation part of it too, like getting rid of any possible trace that could point back to them and what actually happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we see not only on the table underneath Charlie, do we see, black fragments of ABS plastic, like hunks of things that shouldn't be there. But then the SUV is this, from the third row seat to in between the captain seats, it's just covered in small little black glass fragments.
And I want to ask you a question about all of this in a second. I just want to let everyone know we'll get to the supers as we go, because I'm sure people are going to have questions about whatever we're talking about in that moment, and I don't want it to get to the end. This is Kelly, and she says, thank you, Jon, for all your work in bringing justice for Charlie. I know you said you have sent information to the defense team for Tyler Robinson. Have you heard anything back from them?
No, but I keep making forensic packages, and I send them. I figured out who the head of his defense was, and so then I also I have all the same exact packages I send them are on my website. Follow the Epicenter. So it's my fallback. If they just ignore the information I send them, they can't say that they didn't know about it because it's available publicly. So.
Okay. Is Catherine Nestor the head, or is it somebody else? Yeah. Okay. And then thank you, Mystic, for the gifted Blackline brief memberships, and Bree, thank you for the super sticker. And then we got another question here. Do you mind re-explaining how the mic would cause the wound, which ultimately led to the blood coming out? You said it was a device that moved towards Charlie's left. You zoomed in on it. Sorry, I'm having a low IQ moment.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. I'll and then Jon can also go. But the major piece of the mic is under the shirt. It's the bigger part of the mic that a primer explosion to separate it.
So we have the microphone. You have the magnetic clasp. So this is what we're seeing on the outside of his shirt. The microphone's basically mounted like this underneath his shirt. And so when we see that raise up, we're basically seeing the case open up and then out of the case gets ejected the circuit board. And that's what we see underneath his left shirt that raises that square silhouette that we see from the side that's so thin.
Yes.
And then connected to the circuit board is the battery. And so,
and you see the blue from the circuit board too,
yeah,
right? The blue tint.
yeah, exactly. So there's a one frame where kind of the circuitry of the board is sticking out, you know, just a little bit.
Yes.
So you can
Just
see
enough.
it almost like that. And you can see kind of like the pattern of it. And then that blue color, which you can see this has a blue tint to it. You can
Which
map
is unique
that.
because most are green.
And then the size of the bulge that we see, you know, it's a square. You see the silhouette of this black shirt because it's on the background, but at least a square bulge. And that's that size was mapped using the magnetic clasp, because we know the dimension of the clasp. We can see that on the white shirt. And so I matched that with the amount of pixels it took up and mapped it to the size of that. So we know the exact dimension. So it's not only is it the color of the circuit board, it's the size of the circuit board. And then the battery, which is black on one side, kind of silvery gold foiled on the other, is the exact shape that we see on the neckline. And so using the same technique of mapping the size of the pixels to the size and dimensions of the magnetic clasp to the size of the wound we see, the battery is the exact same shape as the neckline. And so basically, as this device was detonated, immediately what we see is that hump, which is basically inside of here, was a jet that basically sent you know, at Mach 7, a jet out of this side of the case, blows the case apart. So only thing that's connected to his shirt are the clip and the back part. That's why we don't see the dimension of the case underneath his shirt after the necklace snaps. So that jet's powerful enough to snap his necklace, send it across his face, basically send a 1 to 2 millimeter, you know, 600 C plasma jet through his body, which basically prevents the blood, because it's sealing as it goes through. The blood's going to be delayed. At least there we go. The blood will be delayed, you know, 30 seconds to 2 minutes before it really start. And it's going to only ooze blood because the wound is only going to be 1 to 3 millimeters big. So it's not going to be like a bloody mess coming out of it. The majority of the bleeding is going to be internally. And then the secondary action we see is basically from the sealed case experiencing this detonation. There's enough force to send the circuit board and the battery across his chest, and just enough momentum for the battery to catch on his muscle here that's right by his jugular, and kind of like a hammock, it digs in. And that's why we see that bulge on his neck pull out, and there's such a delayed pattern. We see the neck bulge, and then we see a rectangle wound appear, but it doesn't bleed. And then we see blood appear, and from 2 different cameras, you can actually see the battery fall out and fall to the ground. And then the heaviest amount of bleeding comes after that. So it's a secondary medium velocity impact from shrapnel. The same shrapnel that raised his shirt up. It's just a different component of the microphone caused the neck wound.
Question. Have you seen the video that Blake Bednards put out a while ago, the slow motion where you see the initial like the wound, and then does it look like there's a piece of shrapnel that precedes the blood as it comes out?
Yeah, that you see you see almost no bleeding. There's a very
correct. It's like clogged.
Yeah, it's clogged, and then immediately there's like a gush, and out of that gush you see a hard rectangle, like hard 90 angle flip out, and then correct. You capture it kind of in this area from one camera angle, and then the camera angle on the side captures it a little bit lower as it spins and falls to the ground. So 2 separate cameras held by 2 different people capture a rectangle object falling out of the wound that precedes the heaviest bleeding, from a delayed wound that had delayed bleeding. So you know, you combine all those factors together, the only logical conclusion you can come up with is that there was a blunt object that basically penetrated just deep enough to break his jugular, and that explains the odd blood pattern that we saw. It wasn't squirting. It was deoxygenated blood. That's why it was kind of like coagulated and dark looking. And it just kind of pours out because the jugular drains the blood from your brain. So, you know, it's not pressurized from your heart. It's draining the blood that's being delivered to your brain. And because we see that his posturing, his heart was probably in full cardiac arrest before the wound even starts to bleed. So what we're seeing is just the gravity draining the blood from his head. So, you know, people that.
Oh, very interesting. That's why it's kind of slow and it's just like boring. And the discoloration is because it's the blood from his brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we know by his posturing that he already had severe brain trauma before then. You know, it's
from the explosion, right?
From the explosion. Yeah. The shock wave that was sent through his body that we see through his hair to his hands everywhere, that basically caused enough nerve damage that he would have been killed just from it alone without any penetration at all. Yeah, it's like an IED blast. Even if you're close enough to it, you could have no wounds at all, and it could kill you because, you know, your body basically cavitates internally and it just shreds your nerves. And so, you know, we see not only midbrain stem damage, but lower brain stem damage too. And the first-hand accounts of the first responders saying that he had doll eyes.
Right.
That's another, you know, none of these can be explained by rifle impact to the zone 2 of the neck.
Right.
It just, especially the trajectory that they say that the shot came from, it wouldn't have impacted his spine at all. And even if it would have impacted his spine, it wouldn't have impacted. It would have to be a C1 impact.
Right.
And there's no way from an elevated position that you strike here
and go up
and go up. Right. Yeah. Just, you know, bullets do weird things, but they don't
do impossible things.
Impossible things, right? Exactly.
Right. Well, and like they said that it came in at this downward angle, then it goes up to then hit and then to crash down through like 6 vertebrae to then be in
and then we find out that that's all speculation. That the surgeon never said that. That was just them. That was just them adding narrative to the story to try to make. Because I guarantee you, they talked to an expert and they said that you're going to have to explain the posturing, right? He had brain damage. The only way you explain that is if he had an impact to C1. So they're just like, okay, the bullet went up and then it went down. And, you know, they suspect us just to take that slop and run with it. But, you know, it's when you take the whole picture into account, it all lines up, right? That's the biggest thing for me is like, I don't want one aspect of the event not to match the whole picture, right? They all come together and tell you the story. And when you add the type of bleeding we see, the trajectory of the shirt, the movement of it, the device disappearing, the posturing of his body, the movement on the back of the shirt, and the order of the events, the only way you can really explain all those together is by a high energy event around the microphone that was strong enough to penetrate his chest.
Right. And, you know, we've seen them change their story multiple times, you guys. And so like, because of what we saw and what our theory has been mischaracterized so many different times, saying that it's an exploding bomb, you know, which is no, it's not a radial explosion, or that it was a explosion that like shot a projectile. Like it ended up like shooting a piece of, you know, a shrapnel, but it wasn't like that's what it was designed to do. Or them when they said, you know, oh, it was a frangible round. That's them trying to then, you know, based on what we were seeing and everyone was saying online, they're trying to, you know, in the moment, explain away to try to grab hold of this narrative. Let's see. We had another one. Hopefully that answered your question, Nina. And then we have Grok said only one building out of 8 at AES blew up. It was the one that built big explosives like TNT, not microcharges. Is it still very sus?
That's not true. It was the building that actually said that the chemist that was the only one qualified to handle the PETN was killed in the explosion. And that was absolutely the building that they've manufactured them in.
You guys, Grok, AI, and ChatGPT is completely BS. It has, you guys, they are using it to censor information, to get people to believe and think certain things. I saved a thread in the beginning where it told me Candace Owens was killed on that day and that Charlie Kirk was alive, you guys.
Yeah.
And I yelled at it and told it was stupid. And then I showed it. I pulled another article and was like, what are you talking about? Like Charlie Kirk was pronounced, and all of the facts from that day. And then it was like, oh, okay, you proved me
I
wrong.
made a mistake. Yeah. I mean, it uses Reddit for sources. It tells you everything you need to know. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't use Grok and AI as an end all be all source. It's like back in the day using Wikipedia. Okay, thank you. My queue is being restored. Good.
It's easy to misunderstand it. There's a lot of moving pieces.
And then thank you, Mystic. All right, let's get back to it. You're back in control of the slides.
All right, perfect. So
we were at the video, I think, right? Still?
Yeah. So basically this is like, again, like we see the microphone case disappear.
Yeah.
We don't see the bulge on the shirt anymore. Like the 44 millimeter dimension's gone. We know the magnetic clasp stayed attached, but we know that underneath the case was destroyed. And so on the face of that case is a black tempered glass. And if you look all through here, there's black tempered glass everywhere. And people said, oh, they're sunglasses or it's a cell phone case. Well, cell phones don't use black tempered glass. They use clear glass with a black plate behind it, so they can make the phone in different colors. There's very few things that actually use a black tempered glass. And this black tempered glass on this microphone, this Rode Wireless Pro, has a beveled edge. And if you go and look at these pieces, you can see the beveled edge on some of these. So, not only do we have black glass, which is a rare thing, but we have black glass with a beveled edge. Just happens to be strode amongst the vehicle that Charlie was in. You can see here more pieces of it. It's even under the front seat. And then if you look in the cracks of the seat here, you can see the little shards of glass in the seat. And
how do you think all of that got back to the car?
If you've ever been in a car wreck, like when glass breaks, like it gets in your jersey knit shirt, it's like a fishnet. It just captures the little pieces. Even this microphone I have, when I took it apart, the face of it broke. It's like almost no way to take it apart without breaking the face. It's just super fragile, and the glass sticks to everything that's fabric. It digs into the weave and it just gets stuck there. So if you look at the kind of the way they pulled him off of the stage, his shirt was bunched up like an accordion.
Yes.
And so I think the glass was just all over his chest and all over the shirt. And when he hit the ground, they bunched that shirt up when they pulled him away, and it just kind of like captured it and held it. And once they got him in the car and they started to, do whatever they did in the car, conflicting reports, but his torso would have been across these two seats here,
right,
where they pulled him across, and then his waist would have been in between the seats, and that's where we see the majority of the glass is in between the seats here.
Yeah.
And I never understood why there was such a high concentration of glass in this area right here until Candace released this photo. You can see that someone pulled up the floor mat.
Correct.
And so that floor mat would have dumped all the glass that it had on it. And that's right in the area where we see it here. You can see the edge of the floor mat there. So, I would imagine that's a floor mat from the back here.
Yep.
That got pulled up and kind of
like turned over.
There. Yeah, exactly. So, we're just seeing that folded up there, which means someone lifted it, and then it basically any debris that was on it all collected here. And it kind of makes sense if you look around the back, like this high concentration of these cough drops here, like, and then there's very little particulate in the center. This is kind of here or there. So I believe that the floor mat was moved after the fact, and then that's why we see like a high concentration of the debris in between the captain seats.
Yeah,
but it's hard to explain away, right? We don't see the microphone clasp, right? We see it beforehand, and this is all after the necklace breaks. There's no 18 millimeter thickness, 44 by 18, square device underneath these shirts. You know, the magnetic clasp and the clisp they're able to fold over on themselves and obstruct the view. You can't do that when you have a 44 millimeter, you know, square device in it. You can see it's just the thickness of the shirt in this frame here. Like there's no device left stuck to this magnetic clasp. This is just the clasp and the clip stuck together. The rest of it is gone. Like, look at that thickness. Like that is
you really see it there. That's very clear. How do you enhance that the bottom, right, to be able to see all that definition?
The CLAH is my favorite enhancement. You can see fine details and that get washed out through kind of like bright backgrounds.
Yeah, and you could still, now that, like, if you look at the bottom and then you look back at the top one, you can actually see it, but only after kind of looking at that one, it gives you the outline and the length and the width of everything.
But yeah, keep that in your mind and then look at this one. Like it's impossible.
Yeah,
it's not there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you tie that with the fragmentation we see on the table underneath them, and then the floorboard of the SUV. Like the only logical conclusion you can come up with is that that case was completely destroyed and there was just fragmentation left underneath his shirt.
Yeah. And you saw the I don't know if you did or not, but Blake Bednard's, he's the one that just has a lot of, I'm referencing him because he has a lot of footage from that day. There's a camera from if I'm Charlie to his left out there, recording, and after the explosion goes off, you can actually see what look like shockwaves above the canopy. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's like a large drum, so you know that. And you know, there's the frequency from that too. You know, this is, I've just been focusing on the visual aspects, but the audio frequencies are just as telling, and they tell the same exact story that we see visually. You know, these high order explosives, they have a certain frequency that they give off. When you have a chest being penetrated by the jet of a shape charge, it has a frequency that it gives off. A bullet being fired, it has two different frequencies. You have the mock cone and then you have the muzzle blast. Like all these things were captured by multiple cameras. So we have a dozen different cameras that we're recording that we have video available for, and they're all over the event. And you can take that audio, even though, you know, the mock cone is high decimal, so you have 5 milliseconds of basically distortion, but you know when it arrived, you can see when it arrived, and you can map the trajectory of that bullet across the crowd. As it crosses the microphones, they pick it up and it goes. And so any audio that comes from a different area is very obvious, and there's a clear, distinct audio signal that's very similar to an N wave, same frequency. It's when it broke the sound barrier, but it comes from underneath the tent. And immediately after, we get the audio of forensically proven of the frequency that a human body makes when it's penetrated, when your chest wall is penetrated. Your lungs are like a drum, and your thorax makes a certain frequency, and that frequency is expressed for the exact amount of time that the forensic, data shows us that a human body would make, a human male of his size, and it's the same frequency, and it's triangulated underneath the tent. So it's like we see it, we hear it. There's not much evidence that doesn't show us that some high order energy event happened in or around that microphone, and whatever it was enough to kill Charlie instantly, well before we see any neck wound appear. So that data alone puts enough doubt that the official narrative can't be the truth, because we see too much energy expelled before we ever see the neck wound even appear.
Correct. And do you think they played the sound of a gunshot that day? Do you think over the speakers? Do you think someone was placed somewhere to shoot a rifle to do the sound?
There was definitely a rifle sound. So I can't tell you where the rifle sound came from. I can tell you it's from an elevated position, and it crossed over the crowd and in front of this tent here. And so
there you go here. Sorry, there you go.
So basically, from the assuming that it was a 30-06 round, and assuming the speed of that round, you can do the math from when the N wave of the bullet passing over the cameras, right? And we can triangulate that because there's people recording way back in the crowd, people recording in the middle of the crowd, and then people right here on the side of Charlie that are recording. And so we can, if we sync all these videos to a certain event, which I synced it to his shirt movement because it's the most, they're all the cameras are pointed at one thing, and that's Charlie.
True. Yeah, that's true.
And the very first thing we see happen with Charlie is his shirt collar raised up.
Correct.
So I synced all the cameras to that exact event when that shirt collar raised up, and then ran the math on the GPS coordinates of where they recorded from. And basically you get with 127 meters from an elevated position. Now that could be anywhere around from an elevated position, 127 meters, but we know for sure that the bullet crosses in front of these two cameras. This 60 frame per second iPhone 15 Pro and the 30 frame per second iPhone 15 Pro, just because they were the closest to it. The N wave peaks the highest for them, and it's the last to peak if you look at the sequence. So we know that it passed over the people in the back of the crowd first, and it passed over these people last. This is
and there's no way to fake that, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult. The speakers can't create it, basically, is what I'm getting at. You would have to have speakers that would have to be like specially manufactured to be able to create the decimals at that levels, at those frequencies that we see, because it's not frequencies of a human voice. It's not frequencies of music. These are frequencies that are within the range that a speaker can make, but it's well beyond what a speaker can make at high decimals. And we have to remember this was like 127, 130 decimals, well beyond what the speakers could even create. So it's just impossible for the speakers to be able to create the frequencies that we heard. This is my latest kind of technique.
I was going to ask you about this because when I watched it earlier, I was like, this is interesting. What is it showing?
So they use this to they can map your breathing and your moving. It's made for very minute movements, but I adapted the code to try to find the areas that move really fast. And so it's not super well suited for what it's doing because there's so much movement around, but it does show us some revealing details of the first movements. And we see here, look,
oh wow,
the black and white are showing you areas with an extreme movement, and we see the collar and the sleeve are immediately the first movements that we see are just dramatic. And then after that, you see the hair there's the shock wave traveling through, and then this peak in front of his collar, which I thought was the most telling. It's just showing you, this angle. We can't see the front of his shirt, but we're seeing that wave that propagated that caused the shock wave that we see his hair and his face and the necklace. Now we're seeing that energy finally reached a point where we can see it. It's eclipsed over the bulge of his shoulder. Yeah. And now we can see it. And now super dramatic, right? You can see compared to all the other movements in the crowd, there's just a tremendous amount of pixel movement all around Charlie. Yeah. Faster than, this would just be a blur if we were just looking at the pixels themselves. But and then just as fast as it starts, it dissipates out, and then we just see his posturing. And so this movement we see here, this is brainstem damage. It's classic. The reason Charlie raises out of his seat is because he's trying to extend his legs.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so you see his knees come together first. That's the very first thing together. His knees clasp together. Boom. And then he's actually trying to cross his legs and straighten his legs at the same time. And if you've seen anybody ever get, fatally wounded with a rifle round that hits them, where it causes basically brainstem damage, that's the type of movement that you see. It's immediate. It's kind of like when you hit a really clean shot on an animal, and they call it dead right there. Yeah, where they just kind of lose all motor function. They just kind of go stiff and fall over dead and extend their legs out. Yeah, exactly. Same exact effect. And we can't see it from this angle, but if you sync this angle with the angle from the front, this is well before any of the neck wound even appears. Like we're still seeing a bulge on his neck. There's no blood coming out of it yet. So it's just, you combine these things together, it just makes it really difficult for you to take the official narrative and make
And
it make any sense. It just doesn't work. You know, there's information that they haven't told us,
right.
or there's something to it.
And you know
And
that people, oh, sorry, go ahead.
that I was telling you about how we know that N wave crossed in front of that camera,
Which is the bullet traveling through the
this
right.
is something that I found accidentally. Lookout Charlie did a YouTube video, and I think October, where he was just analyzing the event, all the weirdness that we saw, and he did audio analysis of it, and he identified this 4940 hertz signal. There was like a whistle that he picked up, and he didn't try to explain it. He just said it was super weird.
Oh, okay.
And it's picked up by that camera that we were just watching, the camera that's kind of like behind Charlie's shoulder. And so, yeah, there's an iPhone Pro. It's the 60 frames per second iPhone 15 Pro that captured it. And it's completely in the left channel of that phone. There's almost none of it in the right channel. So that sort of stereo dominance, it tells you that it was something that was close to them and directly to their left.
Yeah. And
so that always like bothered me. At first, I misidentified it as the battery failing, that the energy from the explosive caused the lithium ion battery to fail, and it started venting off. But then that didn't make sense because it wouldn't have that stereo dominance, because that would have been in front of the camera. We would have had it picked up by both of the channels of the recording. Right? The right and left channel would have picked it up almost evenly. And then I remembered which I thought was crazy. I wrote it off, the whole, van theory that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, because there's a black van that's parked kind of adjacent to the tent.
Underneath the Hall of Flags.
Yeah, underneath the cover. And it opens, the trunk opens up right before the shot, and right after the shot, it closes. And it just seemed like an oddity to me. Like people were just picking out anything that was odd in the crowd and making, a run out of a post or whatever, and speculating what it could mean. But that it struck odd to me that when I map this frequency, because it's picked up by multiple cameras, all the cameras that are close to the event, they all pick it up. And as you go through the crowd, the stereo dominance changes. And so the people that are in front of Charlie, they pick it up pretty evenly on both their channels, which tells you that it's in front of them, which the van was just a little bit to the right of Charlie. Yeah. So, I mapped the trajectory or the triangulation of the audio for that, because it's a pretty unique frequency, so it's easy to kind of pick out. And I know exactly when it happened, because it happens right after the N wave, like immediately after. And it kept mapping right to where that van was. And then I remembered seeing a video on YouTube where a guy shot a ballistic gel block, and it kind of like made a farting sound, right? Because it makes a small hole where it penetrates, and it cavitates open, and then that gas escapes out of that small hole. Yeah. So then I ran the math on it, and a 30 caliber hole, which that a 30-06 is a 30 caliber bullet, striking ballistic gel makes that frequency. And I was like, the math told me that, and I was like, I have to be able to at least find a someone that's replicated it. So I found someone shooting a 30 caliber air rifle into ballistic gel. And it was a suppressed air rifle, so super quiet. So the only thing you heard was the ballistic gel venting off. And so I took those same recordings, which he was recording on a cell phone. The recordings I had of the reference from the event were on cell phones, and they were all within the same range of each other. So, I had a working model, basically, I had the frequency triangulated to where the van was. I had third-party working models of a 30 caliber bullet hitting ballistic gel, creating this frequency. And then I just started finding more and more of them, where people were testing 300 blackout, which is a 30 caliber bullet. Yeah. And to people on YouTube, there's probably 100 videos of someone shooting a ballistic gel block with a 300 blackout. And I started to run them, and they're all within the same range of frequency, giving off the same frequency.
So do you think someone did shoot a rifle and the bullet went into the gel block in the back of the van?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's everything tells me about it. This is the sound of it. You hear it?
Yeah. Oh, at the end. Yeah. Let me make sure. Can you guys all hear that?
I have it isolated. That's just the frequency. And so that is the gas escaping from the cavitation from, the block gets hit, and then it creates a gas kind of expansion, cavitation inside of it. And then the gas has to escape somewhere. And the only place for it to escape is out of the hole, the entry hole of the. So here we have a perfect example of it. So as you see, you have a penetration of the gel. You have a cavitation, which basically creates a cavity full of gas, and then that cavity collapses. And you see behind it, it collapses down. And what we have is this 30 caliber hole that's behind it, and that's what creates the frequency. It's the diameter of the hole and this gas escaping behind it.
Yeah.
But there's a second event that happens, is that we have gas in here that's compressing. It's like a compressed engine, right? The oxygen, once it gets compressed to a certain period, it detonates. And it has a certain rhythmic pattern that it detonates, the cavitation pulses, they basically. And I was able, you see that? Where it detonates and then re-expands. Boof.
Yeah. It like collapses and then
comes and then it'll do it again. Boof.
Yeah.
And so that's a mathematic pattern. Like you can put that to pen to paper and get a precise pattern that in between each pulse how long it's gonna take. And we detected that pulse too. We know the frequency that it'll create, and that pulse was detected also. So not only do we have a frequency called multiple cameras that happens to be replicated by numerous third parties of a 30 caliber bullet creating this 490-40 hertz frequency of a gas venting out of the gel block. We also picked up the cavitation of the secondary sound waves coming from the
gel block.
The gel block, yeah. So again, it's like you have layers of evidence that lends to it, and then the feasibility of it, like the fact that the van's within eyesight of where the supposed shot came from. The back of it opens up seconds before the shot's taken, and then it closes right after. It's just, it doesn't leave a lot of, room to say that it's absolutely not possible. And one of the things that, that I think that we have to keep in mind is that we just had that Butler PA event.
Yeah.
And the amount of audio analysis that went on with that event, there's probably, 10 to 1 as far as people looking at videos of it and analyzing it to people analyzing the audio of it, looking at the N waves, looking at the Mach cones. And so, anybody that's trying to conspire to this sort of thing, they have to know that there's going to be people recording the event. That video is going to be made available to everyone, and people are going to pour over the data of it. And so you want it to be as accurate as possible to your official narrative. So you want that bullet to pass by Charlie as close as possible.
Yes.
You want it to come from the general area where you claim that it was shot from. You want it to be the speed of the round that you say it is. And another detail is that ideally you would want to be able to recover the bullet. And you could do that beforehand, so you can match the bullet. If you're going to fake a rifle impact, the way you really close the loop is you do like JFK. You drop the bullet at the hospital, or on the way to the hospital, you place the bullet in Charlie's shirt or something. You know what I mean? And so, you look at the fact that they used a private vehicle to take Charlie to the hospital. They were denied EMT help at the scene. His own security took him to the hospital. The very people that failed him supposedly are the ones that, were allowed to walk around the event and clean it up after the fact.
Right.
So, if there were, people that were conspiring on the scene, they had all the opportunity in the world to drop a bullet and, make it a closed loop between Charlie got shot in the chest, here's the bullet, we all saw it happen. But I believe that they had to kind of abandon that, because how do you have an intact bullet of a 30-06 that struck someone in the neck? Like, you can't explain that. It should have went right through. You know what I mean? Like, you can't show up with a bullet that you can run analysis on to match to a rifling that strikes the zone 2 of the neck.
What do you think they found in the autopsy?
We'll never see the autopsy. That's my take on it. I think that the autopsy is just going to be buried.
You think they found a bullet like they claimed?
I think that they probably found fragments of something, and that's all they have to say. We found a fragment, a metal fragment, and we ran analysis on it, and it's inconclusive, and that's enough to convince most people. And that's exactly what's happened. That's what they've said. They said, we found a fragment of the jacket, and it's inconclusive. Like, we'll never see pictures of it. But when you have the vice president of the United States flying out and ordering autopsies and flying bodies off on Air Force, or government planes. Like, Charlie wasn't a politician. He was just a political commentator. He was just a normal citizen. Like, you don't of a nonprofit. Like, none of it maths up. And if you had to absolutely wrap it up, and you didn't want anyone at the hospital saying anything, and you didn't want the autopsy revealed, like, that's the type of moves that you make, because there's all sorts of levels of secrecy that come with a vice president being involved with it. Like, they could seal that up forever. We'll never hear about it. I mean, we still don't know what happened to JFK. No. Like, they're still giving us redacted reports on that. So it's along the same lines of secrecy that you get involved with the event when that sort of caliber of person gets involved. So, it just makes it that much more difficult for us to assume that we'll oversee any data from autopsy or firsthand reports from people, and the surgeon or anybody that laid hands on Charlie. They're probably NDA'd up, and probably will never talk about it again.
Right. And if the Google search trends point to anything as well, that a lot of people seem to were put in place before the event. Whether that be in the FBI, the DA, at the hospital, these people were Google searched in the months leading up to it, whether that be in Philly or in DC, and either they were approached and made sure that they were going to play ball, or who knows what the conversation.
And that's what you have to control, which hospital Charlie goes to.
Yeah.
So that's another reason you don't just hand them off to EMT, because they're going to take them to whatever hospital is closest, so most well qualified. And that doesn't work for your pre-planned event. Yeah, exactly. No, you need a private party to take him to the hospital that you have planned out.
Yeah. We had a question here, and then we're going to continue on. It said, Maya Lanier want to know the following. The goal was a chest wound. How would a shape charge that was inside the mic placed sideways ever have gone down into the chest, sending on her behalf? Okay.
It goes straight through. So it's like that mic is placed sideways, like on his chest. It's sideways like that. And so basically it's a direct line of sight at the way that mic was back. And then we see that hump on his back, right? If you can draw a line from the edge of that mic out the hump of his back, and that's basically, the line of that jet that would be coming out of that shape charge. And so if you're trying to even plausibly use a scenario where it was a rifle shot, after that event, Charlie would be left with a 1 to 2 millimeter clean hole in his chest that would extend out his back. So, while it's not perfect for a rifle shot, it's a lot better than the neck wound that we saw. And I think and it would be pretty easy to convince people that, from the movement of his shirt, from him falling over dead, him arriving at the hospital, them saying he has a hole in his chest, like, it would be pretty easy to convince people it was a rifle shot.
And I mean, just look at what they've been convincing people of with the story as it is today. They would have done the same thing. I think the misconception that the questioner had was that when you think in the chest, or, the person is thinking center mass, we're not saying down here in his sternum, right? We're just saying like it was supposed to mimic a, you know, a 30-06 wound up here
Yeah.
in his chest.
Which would be
Yeah.
the easiest shot for an amateur rifleman
Right.
to take, right? Center
Yeah.
mass, a little off
Yeah.
center. Like, it would be pretty plausible that, you know, a kid could hop up there and take a shot like that on a cold bore and hit him in the chest like that. So.
Yep. All right. We're caught up on the super chats. You want to get to your next?
Yeah. Let's see what we got.
Oh, and a quick question. Yeah, this is right where we left off. What made you rule out the possibility that, you know, the pendant, that the necklace, when it broke, that the, you know, the St. Michael pendant isn't what penetrated the neck?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see here. I'll go through the back angle that was basically released by Cannons. It shows that necklace basically like resting across his the back of his shoulder, and so it makes it real difficult. Oh, that's a good one. I'll have to go back to that one. See if I can find it. Yeah, right here. So, you know, this is showing that, you know, if you see the frames before that, you can see that that necklace is just draped over his shoulder.
Yep.
And then in this video right here, where the angle's a little better, you can see the necklace right here.
Yes.
It never moves from his left shoulder. And so
that part of it, correct. Yes.
Yeah. So the trajectory is it separates up and over his head and then swings around, and then it drapes and swings from his shoulder. So for that to be able to be possible, the pendant can't be moved. It can't be the cause of the shirt collar raising up, because how does the pendant move and raise the shirt collar, but it doesn't move the necklace with it, right? You follow?
Oh, yeah. The chain would have lifted up too. If the pendant, it's connected to the chain and it lifts all of that up, the chain is going to lift up on that left side of the shoulder, all that back over there.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have seen it just resting on his left shoulder. We would have seen it raise up too, and it would have been, you know, the necklace would have fell out of his shirt more than likely. You know, there would have been nothing there to hold it. The fact that we see the necklace swing up and then it extends in length as it swings down, you know, it's kind of showing you it's slinking up and pulling the pendant up from the weight of the necklace, not from the pendant being kind of like moved forward. And then the really thing that sold me that it wasn't the pendant was seeing that mapping that square shape that matched the size of the circuit board, and then mapping the blue hue. You just can't explain that blue color and that square shape with any of the pendants combined.
I hadn't seen that before looking through your stuff, so that was a good catch on that video. Let me show you guys this, and then we're going to continue. This is just, I wanted people to see, this is what it looked like. This is the actual necklace. I found, I enhanced it. Oh, hold on. And then we'll go to there. This is his actual necklace. This is a picture of her holding it. This would be what was underneath, and that's the actual chain. I just enhanced it to clean it up to make it look better. All right.
So this is a kind of like a video and audio synced together. The lines represent the different audio events. So this red line is the muzzle blast arriving, and then this green line here is the N wave, and the detonation happens right after it. And then this magenta is kind of like the frequency from his body. And the red and green represent the two different audio channels. So, you know, we have the right audio channel, and the green, the left audio channel in the red. And then you can see the peaks are the intensity of the sound. And so, like this section here, you can see the N wave has a directional, you know, force to it, where it arrives in one microphone before it arrives in the other microphone.
Yes, it switches over. Yeah.
But we can see that right after that, we have that carries over from the end wave, which really should have stopped right here and then carried over to the other mic. There's a shared peak that
Why?
is a strong end wave, and that is the microphone picking up the sound of the detonation.
And when you mean detonation, what do you mean?
The shape charge going off
Of the mic.
of
Okay.
the mic. Yeah. So
The end wave
basically,
is the bullet, right?
the trigger for the detonation was this peak arrival, this end wave right here. So as soon as that end wave, the arrival of that sound of that bullet going past that microphone, it triggered the detonation sequence. And then what we see here, where these two peaks are matched, where the red and the green are both peaking at the same time, is the arrival of that sound that's largely in front of this camera, arriving at these channels at the same time, where the end wave arrives from the left side or the right side and passes over to the left, which is what we see in these higher peaks. But these shared peaks, to find this without looking at the channels separately and seeing the overlap, it would be almost impossible to differentiate the frequency of the Mach cone, that bullet passing, from the detonation. And so, this is a really well designed kind of means to obscure the sound of the detonation. And I think that's why you get a lot of people that say that, they heard it come from different areas, because it wasn't a single sound. It wasn't a single source of the sound. We had the end wave pass by, and immediately within milliseconds, we had the detonation of the device. So it was muddied waters as far as where the audio really came from. And I think they knew specifically because cell phones, they distort for 5 milliseconds after they get peak frequencies over 100 decibels. It's just distortion for 5 milliseconds before they can really recover. And the detonation happens kind of within that window. So, they're obscuring the sound of their explosive within the audio, kind of limitations of the devices that they knew surely would be recording the event. Initially, I thought that they were using the end wave to detonate it, and they were going to delay it until the Mach wave or the muzzle blast arrived. But it wasn't until I went and looked at all the recordings of the Israeli pager events that I realized that the frequencies wouldn't have matched. The frequencies of the muzzle blast aren't at all like the frequencies of the of a PETN explosion.
Right.
A PETN explosion sounds like a Mach cone. They're similar frequencies, but they have a different wave. Like a PETN explosion is really abrupt and square, and it drops off. And because of that, a Mach cone lasts a little longer and it fades off. It comes on and then it fades off more rounded. And so it gives you the perfect opportunity to hide that detonation in that kind of like the fall off of the end wave. And if you listen to it, you can kind of hear it's almost two sounds.
Yes.
And then muzzle blast. And what I find even more, revealing about this is that if you look at kind of the arrival of the muzzle blast, it also peaks really heavy on that same size channel, that the right channel. So that's showing you that the end wave peaks on the right channel, muzzle blast peaks on the right channel. But look, look at the left channel.
Right.
Why is this left channel peak so much harder than the muzzle blast? This is both sound waves passing both microphones, right? We should see a similar pattern on this one, but the difference is that there was a secondary audio event that sent basically frequency to both of the channels evenly, if not even peaked a little harder on this right channel.
Oh wow!
Than the left channel on this one. And you just can't really explain the difference between the two because of that. And you can even see the echo of this guy's right by a wall, so the muzzle blast passes by him, it hits his right channel, passes by his left channel, and then you see the echo off of the wall that he's next to you.
It's all concrete right there.
Yeah, exactly. He's the closest to the wall, so he gets the strongest echo. but you know, he's not in earsight of any speakers or anything, so it's hard. It's not distortion from the speakers. I actually did a bypass filter of all the frequencies that the speakers can make, and it didn't make any difference as far as the audio goes. Like the majority of the audio, all the peaks that we saw had nothing to do with the speakers.
Okay. I was going to ask you a question because a lot of people, and even me too, right? The order of operations, the order of what things happen that day from what we see. A lot of people think when they're watching the video that the first thing we see is the shirt movement, and then we hear the muzzle blast, right? The actual rifle, but the bullet was already in the air by the time we hear that, correct?
Yeah, well,
It's almost near him.
Yeah, the crack is you're by the time you see the crack, you know, displayed on the video, it's already passed by you. Like there's a amount of latency in between a recording of it passing by and it actually getting displayed on the video. So that's why if you look at the movement of the shirt actually precede the audio peaking slightly, because there's a little bit of delay between the two. So that's why it's just looking at the audio can be really ambiguous, because there's latency in between each camera, the position of it. You really have to sync it with the video that they were recording to be able to get it to tighten up and get a better idea of what you're actually associating the sound with.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at, was in which order did the sounds happen with what we were seeing?
Yeah, so I have another video. Let's see if I can.
And then while you pull that up, Cynthia said, can you ask Jon if he believes the photo Blake shared shows Brian Harple twisting something under his armpit? Does that make sense?
I haven't been able to. I've tried to track that and time it, and it's kind of like the sleeve pull. You see the guy in the green shirt.
Yeah, Rick Cutler.
Yeah, it doesn't time up right.
No, it doesn't.
I can't find an angle where I can really get a good idea of the timing of when he twists his palm. Yeah, it's I can't really see it in most angles. It's only that one angle they shows that I can even see it. So I haven't been able to like run something conclusively to say one way or another. It's kind of
but like, someone had to detonate something, right? In order to
all someone would have to do really is to prime it, where you know that it's set to go. To
on
me,
a timer.
Yeah, well, to say that it's ready to if it receives the Mach cone signal.
Oh, you think that possibly the rifle, the bullet is
100%. The Mach cone from the bullet is what detonated. That's kind of like, you know, that only humans have like a 300 millisecond reaction speed. It's pretty slow. Like they needed something within 5 milliseconds to be able to time it to make it look convincing. Yeah. And the only way you would really be able to do that is to have a device. And that microphone, not only does it have a really like high quality, you know, speaker or microphone for picking up the audio, but it has an ARM processor, 32-bit float on it. So it has the processor speed to be able to receive that that in wave, that Mach cone, and in time process it and send it to a detonator. So you know, it's like a target of opportunity where you have the convenience of a object that is a wireless, so you can wirelessly arm it. It has a processor that's fast enough in it where it can receive a audio frequency and detonate, you know, a device within milliseconds of that audio frequency being received. And it's going to be worn in an area that's basically, you know, by vital organs. So you know, it's like the perfect means to
so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then what you said about the walkie-talkies, right? We don't know how those were detonated, that it could have been something similar technology, like a frequency that sent.
Yeah, exactly. It couldn't be a radio signal. Most people just assumed that it was a radio signal, but it couldn't,
because some of them were turned off.
They were just on the battery. The battery exploded when it's just on the charger. So it's not even close to the transmitter. It's not hooked up to the actual device that has a wireless capability. Like the battery had no wireless capability. It was just a lithium ion battery.
Holy smokes.
And so, I imagine they know exactly how it was set off, but again, it's like the solar battery backups that exploded that day. It's an amount of tech that they weren't really willing to release yet.
Yeah, for sure.
And so this is where kind of you look at the energy profile. Like, well, I wanted to make sure that there was enough time that from their arrival of the N wave that the device could actually have enough, that the latency would be low enough that it could detonate it within the time. And, it's beyond a doubt. Not every model of Rode would be able to do it, but this is the Rode Pro. And the main difference is that it has a really low latency chip to sync it with video, so you don't get any off sync audio to the video.
Oh wow.
So it's like, I can only imagine that it was just too good not to use. You have everything that you need there. And, depending like on a human to trigger a device by hand that needs to be timed by milliseconds is just so difficult. It would just be, you're just asking for failure. But to me, like, the more you can eliminate human involvement in this type of scenario, the better. Like, just the fact that you would need to, put it on him in a certain position would be bad enough. But as you documented, it was pretty well in concrete how they put the microphone on Charlie.
Yeah, it was normal. I thought it was abnormal actually, but then when I started looking, I was like, oh, that's kind of how they put it on him.
Yeah. And so, you go to it's just a perfect target opportunity.
Yeah.
This is a great representation of where you talked about the order of operations. Like, like the very first thing we see from the front view is just this boom. Like, we don't see any of that movement on the side like we see it from the side view. But keeping that in your mind, before this ever happens, we have the shirt bulge up on the back. The necklace is already halfway over his face here. The very next frame, we're going to see the necklace start to fly over his head. You'll see it. There it is. So you see the necklace is well over his head at this point. Like, it's already, and you can see how it loops. So you can see that the momentum started here and it pushed it out and it's looping around.
It's like whipping. Yeah,
like a whip. And it hasn't moved from over here. It's still, this is the fulcrum, this is the pendulum. So it makes it very difficult to believe that the pendant caused this to raise up, because if that's the case, then it would be lifting from all the areas. We wouldn't see this whip where it's rounding around itself around the fulcrum here. And then just as fast as that collar raises up, it falls down. And if you look real close, there's residue that's left on this collar. It's a smudge.
What do you think that is?
I think it's just residue from the circuit board where, the circuit board was blown off. Heated up enough where you see the residue from it. And so, again, zoomed in, boom, the necklace, it's the speed at which it goes from arrest to just almost over his head. Poof, just tremendous amount of energy. And then the side view, when we look at this, so the one camera, the 30 frame per second camera captures the big hump, and all we get on the 60 frame per second camera is a ghost. You see the ghost silhouette here?
Yes.
You can see the hump, but it's like in between frames. So that's like 10 millisecond, 15 millisecond movements. It's just beyond explanation. And then the deformation of his face, like Charlie's face doesn't look like this.
No.
The amount of energy it takes to deform someone's face to push his chin down that much. And when you see the actual move file, you can see the waves of the force going through his skin. Look at his hair getting blown back. It looks like someone has a blow dryer blowing on his hair right here.
Yeah, even on the top too.
Yeah. And so all that happens before the neck wound even appears. Like the amount of force that we see. And then you combine that angle with this angle, it's boom. Like, look how thin this profile is that raised that shirt up. Yeah, it's it's not a huge bulge. You know, it's something that's thin, it's rectangular, and it was moving at a trajectory that raised it up from that area. You look at the front angle, you can see the fabric of the shirt, how it stretches. That it, you know, that kind of the way the shirt folds, it shows you where the energy was originated, and it's from the opposite side of his collar. Another view. Each of these cameras kind of capture something unique because the shutter speed difference of it. You can see the bulge here difference. This one is actually really interesting because at the same time we see this ghost bulge, we see a puff of like, it's like a mirage almost, where you have like heated air that passes over light and it distorts it. And then there's like a gray smoke to it too. It's hard to see, but if you enhance it, you can see it. And especially if you take it the frame before and the frame after, it becomes really apparent. So this is a frame before. Boom, you see it?
Yep, I see it.
Just enough for you to be able to see the distortion and the light behind it, and then there's the swicking. And this is the exact same time that we see this extremely fast, you know, 10 milliseconds, 15 millisecond movement on the back of his shirt. So we have, you know, something that distorts the light and puts out a puff of white gray smoke out the front of the collar. At the same exact time, we get extremely fast, you know, expansion of the back collar. You can't explain that by anything other than the Howard or explosives, like just the speed that we're seeing it move, that amount of energy, that amount of expansive force. It's hard to come up with any other means that it could happen. And then this, you see the distortion of his face better here. It's just dramatic. The microphone case is gone at this point. You can see where the necklace ends. This wasn't broken at the clasp. This was broken in the middle of the necklace.
Chain,
Yep. And then notice how it traveled around his neck. Like it's still resting on his shoulder here.
It is. And his hair is all deformed.
And see the microphone turn. So we have a 90-degree turn of the microphone. No microphone there, right? That is just the back face of it. This is the one that's just so bizarre. Like that if there's one frame that makes the official narrative very difficult to believe, it's this frame right here. Just we see the distortion starting on his face here.
Like
it's not even double chin. Exactly, like a double chin, but it's like someone's pulling his flesh here, and at the same time you see his hair get blown out. His neck is getting deformed. At the same time, we have this necklace blown up and over his head, and a huge, you know, camel hump on his back. It's just, there's nothing about a rifle shot to the opposite side of his body, especially his neck.
And people are saying like cavitation, but it's like there's not even a wound here yet. Number one. Number two, his necklace was very long. It rested down right about his sternum. That like the cavitation would have had to have been so massive to actually snap the chain.
And then ballistic gel doesn't move like human flesh. It's made to replicate the penetration potential of a ballistic impact. Like it's not made to replicate the surface reaction of an impact. And the people that make it will warn you about it, that you know, it's a very elastic material. So, you know, when you see the people replicate it shooting ballistic gel and you see it expand out, that's not at all what human tissue does. Like human tissue is pretty complex. It's not, you don't make an analog of it with gel. And there's not much soft tissue on the back to really cause this sort of bulge. You know, there's more soft tissue on the lower part, right? He has some more loose flesh and muscle and you know, density to a flesh to cause cavitation down here, but along the back of the neck it's pretty bony. You know, it's not a lot there. There's nothing that you can explain. And we see his flesh. Like, does his flesh magically bulge out 4 inches from this point to here? No, it doesn't.
That's just the hot air. That's from the explosion, right?
Yeah, and it's a full penetration. And that video that Canis released, I didn't upload it, but you can see it on my X. You actually see right in this area, there's a stain that appears, you know, before they dumped Charlie on the ground. That wasn't there before. And it's right, you know, if the jet was peaking, if you make a straight line from where that mic was through his body, kind of like you can see here, and then there's a stain that appears, seconds after. So while it's not blood, it's in the red spectrum, and if you look at the kind of the medical explanation for that, is that you basically have a hot plasma jet that's blasting through. The wound is small enough that the bleeding is highly delayed because of the size, and then the heat kind of like seals the wound as it travels through. So the wound can travel all the way through, blow glass out of the back, and not blow blood out immediately. But
Do you think there is an exit wound from this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we're seeing here. I think we're seeing the gas fully penetrate his chest and blow through. And the reason I think this is because you pick up the frequency of that. So human chest getting impacted from the front, it's like hitting a drum from the outside. Right. It has you have a volume of air. You have the density and properties of the flesh surrounding it. You can basically calculate the frequency that it will make. And then there's a frequency that's created when you penetrate a human chest and enter basically a expansive area inside these lungs.
Yeah.
It's going to create cavitation of the air inside of there, and it's going to cause his thorax to reverberate. And a average human male, which Charlie's a little above average, but you can calculate that with the amount of volume of air in his lungs, a penetrating force, the size of his thorax, and that frequency that you would expect is caught in all the cameras that are close to him, and that all that frequency is triangulated to underneath the tent. So
really,
not only do we have the shirt bulging out and the amount of energy needed to kind of like explain how something could penetrate his chest, and then we have a stain appear on his back of his shirt in the general area where we see the bulge, but we have that frequency that is the exact frequency that you would expect from a penetration force of the chest. And we don't get it's not like you get the frequency of an impact and then the penetration. Like it's immediately just the penetration frequency. So whatever it was cut through him like a hot knife through butter. And basically that hot plasma jet, when it reached his lung cavity, it expanded out and bounced around and turned him into like a human drum for just a short amount of time. And it's the duration that is very telling too. It's not only just the frequency that's created, but how long the frequency should be created is right on point too. So it's just like,
really?
You add all these little details together. Like we have the visual of what we see, and then we have the frequency of what you would expect from that visual that lines up with it, that's in sync with the frames. It makes it difficult just to write it off.
Yeah.
And there's the mic, no case connected to it.
Why do you think it turned like that? Why do you think we saw the magnet turn?
Because there's a rubber case around the circuit board, and so basically as the insides were ejected out of that microphone, the one side of the rubber case gets pulled, where only one side of the circuit board is kind of like would hang up on the rubber stopper kind of spacer inside the microphone.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just the momentum that was from the insides of the microphone being ejected out of the case caused it to turn.
Oh, interesting.
This is that angle, that back angle. And so you can see, you can see that necklace whipping around, and then we'll see that stain appear, which is hard to see unless you enhance it, but you can still get an idea of the area that it was. This video is missing a lot of frames. It's kind of like a recording of a FaceTime. So anything that moved really fast kind of got lost in the compression.
You think he did that on purpose, Terrell Farnsworth?
Yeah, he knew that there was be limited data you would be able to gain from it, but you can see that stain right here. So we go before, this is the general area.
Huh.
And then it's subtle.
There it is.
But when you enhance it and you run the actual spectrum analysis on it, it shifts red. So, you know, it while it's not like blood, I believe it's particulate of flesh that basically were carried out with the hot jet. And people try to say it was his hand, but you know, his hands, he's not even standing by him at this point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's there before.
Wasn't his hand.
Yeah.
But you get an idea of how they kind of chunk them to the ground here.
Yeah.
And then again, the microphone, there ain't no case on that. That is just a clip.
Oh yeah, you're right. It
Yeah.
would have been bulging out further.
Yeah, this angle really sealed the deal for me that there was
Yeah.
no way that was going to be. Yeah, this full case was not attached at that point. That was just a clasp and a clip, nothing more.
Yeah.
And then I kind of sealed the deal. This is the analysis, the further analysis of that kind of like pre and post.
Yeah.
Where you can clearly see these are the bulges. You can see the shape, the diameter, and then after it's just a clip.
Yeah.
And then this is the looking at the making sure the stain wasn't there beforehand. So basically just ran the shirt through every filter I had to see if I could pick it up. And there's just wasn't there. Maybe I'll have so that's a smudge zoomed in.
Oh,
that's
wow.
it. That's it enhanced. And then this is the color gradient of it. So when you put the color gradient on it, it becomes really obvious that, you know, there was definitely a large color shift in that area. And that area just happened to be right in that area that we see the bulge. Yeah. So it's just kind of like once you coordinate all that together, it becomes a little more clear, puts the pieces together that, you know, you can kind of put an explanation of the bulge, the microphone, the necklace snapping, like all the energies have to have a source. They have to have a common, you know, a thread that ties them all together. And I think that thread is going to be, you know, between the frequencies that we detected, between the physical, you know, traits that we see kind of unfold with it. It's hard to come up with any other conclusions that the epicenter of the event was in and around that microphone.
Right. I'm going to read a couple of these real quick while we pull up the next slide. Okay. Have you ever heard of a case where they gave all the evidence back to the wife, even though it could be considered evidence, like the cell phone, the mic, the necklace?
Yeah, you generally, when something happens, and you know, especially like wealthy, influential people, like the wife or the husband is like suspect one.
100%.
Before you know anything else, just because they have the most motive. I mean, they have basically an empire that they're going to inherit from, you know, and so you don't just hand over the keys to the kingdom to them if they could possibly be, you know, a guilty party. Even if you already have someone, how do we know that she didn't hire Tyler Robertson? You know, like, you don't know. So, you know, even if you think you found the shooter and you have plenty of motive, like, you leave all possibilities on the table until you're sure that they're not. And that's just the way that they handled the evidence, the way they handled the people around them, the fact that they allowed the security to basically like walk around the area and look for things, like kick over evidence and pull SD cards out. Like, none of it makes sense. It should have been sealed off. Third parties should have been coming and collecting the evidence. Everybody from the security to Erica Kirk to people that worked in and around Charlie, they all should have been pulled in separately, interviewed. You know, all that data would have led you to the truth. But, you know, they were more concerned with the leftist, tranny loving, you know, furry shooter. And so, you know, that's the 33 hours was spent just defaming Tyler Robertson and feeding us unrealistic narratives instead of like trying to actually figure out maybe there's foreign involvement. Like, was there any foreign, you know, cell phones at the scene? Do we have any motive for, you know, foreign actors to want to harm Charlie? Like, these are
Yeah.
all questions that should have been asked, should have been pursued, but none of it was. And I think that the deeper we get into it and we look at what's happened since then, it becomes pretty clear. Like, Charlie
Yeah.
was anti-war. Like,
Yeah.
wars get planned years in advance. So
Yes, 100%.
they knew what was coming down the pike, and
Yeah.
Charlie was influential, and Charlie was against the war.
Yeah.
And you have billions and trillions of dollars that get made off of
Literally.
war, like just
Literally.
betting on the stock markets when things happen during the war. You make trillions of dollars just off of that. And it was a great diversion from the Epstein event.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about Epstein anymore. Everybody's looking
No.
at the war. So it's like
Yeah.
you tie all these things together.
Yeah.
Charlie was a target opportunity. It eliminated a lot of problems for them, and it
Yeah.
solved a lot of issues that they had.
Yeah.
And now we'll look at Charlie's organization after he left. It's a complete 180 from what he was doing. They've
Yep.
deleted all his old videos that are any contrary to what they're
Yep.
doing now. So
Yep.
it's like, you look at the motive, you look at the means, and you look at the actions of the individuals after, it all kind of lines up. I mean, it's not out of the ordinary.
No.
The parties involved have, the people closest to it all been fired, removed, or taking new positions. Like, it's
Yeah.
just going to be swept under a rug, and they'll carry on like business as usual. And, they'll throw Tyler Robertson under the bus just so normal people would be like, oh, well, that's solved. Tyler Robertson was a shooter. He pled guilty, or he confessed to his parents, or, he sent a text to his lover. It's just very easy for people to write things off. All they need is just a vague conclusion, and they're ready just to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with everything you said more. Do we know who was holding on to the device prior to it being put on Charlie? Was it Mikey McCoy, Brian Harple, Dan Flood, Frank Turek? I know that it's been speculated that Butch Hibbs had a similar sized device, but I don't know. I think on a show you went on, you said actually when you measured it, it was a little different, or what do you think?
Yeah, we know who put it on Charlie. I mean, it's this
Philip,
AV team. It's the people
Yeah,
that always handle, like, they wouldn't be, Charlie would be highly suspect of some random old guy showing up and having his wireless microphone. Like, who is this dude? Never seen him before. Oh, he has my microphone. Okay, clip it on me. Like,
Right.
It was business as usual. It was the same
Right.
people that always put his mic on. It was the same people that always handle his AV.
Well, and there was
we have a video of them putting the mic on him.
Correct.
Like, we know who put the mic on him.
Yeah, it was Philip 1776 and Terrell Farnsworth. But I don't know if Barron did a good job explaining that, because the place in which Butch Hibbs lives, I guess there was a flight from his, which is pretty. There's a lot of speculation on this that went to Tennessee, and they're trying to account for who went and picked up the microshaped charge and put it all together. I think all Barron was saying was that, like, Butch Hibbs brought it there, gave it to the AV team, and the AV team put it on him. I don't think he was saying that Butch Hibbs put it on Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't know. Like, I mean, is it possible that's what the importance for Candace and Barron focusing on the Fort Huachuca thing, that's where they would have got a lot of this stuff together?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So many in front of the van. Thoughts on rifle shot above, beyond, out, back, in the back?
Yeah, people say that, but it's like, as a shooter, like, is anybody in front of the van moving a whole lot? Like, everybody's pretty much like in stationary position. The only person that moves a lot is the person that opens the van door up, and he scoots out of the way. He opens that van door up and he races around. And if you look at the video, he's the first one to jump. Like, I've done analysis on all the reactions of people. So, everyone has a natural reaction speed, and you can tell who reacts first, who heard it first. You can use this on animals. Like, you can know what animal saw the predator first, because they'll react milliseconds before the rest, and it cascades down.
Right.
So you can use that to kind of find, like, the epicenter of the reaction. And the guy that opens the trunk up just seconds before the shot rings out, he barely gets around. He opens the trunk, races around. He's barely to the driver's door before he jumps. And it's literally like a frame or two before anybody else reacts. People that had the bullet zip past them, don't even react yet before this guy jumps, and it's just really odd that, he goes and opens the trunk, races around it, and then like reacts so dramatically to an event that nobody else has reacted to, and then immediately closes the trunk remotely. Like it's just,
Right.
it's really difficult to
Explain that.
explain that. If it was just that by itself, it'd be like, oh, just this weird stuff going on in the crowd. But when you tie that to the frequencies, it's not a single frequency, and it's not from a single camera. Like we have multiple cameras, multiple frequencies. We know the bullet passed the tent. It didn't end at the tent. It passed the tent, and it passed right in front of those two, iPhone Pro 15s that were,
Frank.
The bullet was closer to them than it was to Charlie. Put it that way. So we know that the bullet didn't the path of the N wave should have ended at the tent.
Right.
The people that were in front of the tent should have had the highest peak because it literally passed in front of them, over the top of them. And that's not what we see. Like we see the people that were to the right of the tent, they pick up the highest frequency of it. And so, the bullet passed in front of them, and that doesn't make any sense for it impacting Charlie. And then we get the weird van door opening and the frequency coming from within 3 meters of the van of ballistic gel impact and the cavitation afterwards. It's just, it's hard just to explain all that away. Like if it was just like, what could it have been? Like we didn't have the video of the van opening up and the guy, acting weird and jumping right afterwards, it would be easier for me to write it off. But when you tie it all together, the weight of it is really hard to ignore.
Do you think that he jumped first because he knew it was coming?
He knew it was coming, and I think that he heard it hit that jail, and it was
he's right there,
and he knew that if anybody was in danger, he was the one in the most danger because he was standing in the line of fire, and that's why he moved with such urgency to get out. He opens the van and literally just like scoots around it. He's like booking it around the car. And he doesn't even give a round to the driver's door before he hears the thing, and it freaks him out because he knows, that guy had to be in on it. Like he had to open, he had to be at least told to open it and close it at a certain time. So at best, he knew that something was going to be going on inside the van that was key for him to open it and close it. And I imagine that when he heard it, it freaked him out.
Right. So M. Malloy said, if all went as planned, wouldn't people still be questioning a 30-06 chest wound without any blood on him? There's only blood from the neck wound, which wasn't supposed to be there.
It's a good point, but the backside of the bleeding of a 30-06 impact is going to be the heaviest blood. The entry wound wouldn't bleed nearly as much as you would imagine. So, for Charlie to be hit in the chest and us not see blood immediately, him fall over, and then us see blood after they carry him away, I think it'd be really easy for people just to write it off as, bullets do weird things. And if you see animals get hit, it's not, you don't see blood on the entry wound. You'll see blood on the backside of them. Or blood, once you come up to them, it'll be, 10, 30, 40 seconds after before you'll see any weeping from the entry wound. But the backside is where you get the dramatic bleeding, and we wouldn't see much of that.
Right. And keep in mind that, like, in situations like this, whether that be the medical staff or Brian Harple's team, they would have cut the shirt. Right. And so, like, the shirt would have been damaged by the time
we still don't see the shirt. We don't know anything about the shirt. We get conflicting reports about what even happened to the shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Next we have, do you think 30-06 was always the plot, or did they shift trying to explain neck wound?
Yeah, they had to make a narrative shift. So that's why you see the panic and all the weirdness. Like, it would have been such a clean operation. Like, it was really well thought out. Like, this was a high level operation, and it didn't need to involve a lot of people to be able to be pulled off.
Right.
And without that neck wound, it would be very, very convincing. I would say it was a better event than the Butler PA event. I'll put it that way.
Right. But I think her question was, do you think that the 30-06 was the plan the whole time? Like, it was supposed to.
A chest shot with a 30-06 was the plan.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they saw the neck wound, it was like, you can't. The problem is that it's a single shot. If they would have had like somebody shooting an AR and there was multiple shots, you could have made it work, right? He got hit in the chest, he got hit in the neck, right?
Yeah.
But with a single shot from 30-06, you can't explain 2 wounds with a single shot on the opposite side of the body. You have to choose one, and you can't just be like, hey, he didn't get hit in the neck. What are you talking about? Like, it was just too obvious. Everybody saw it. So like they had to make a hard pivot and they had to make it work. So, that's why we just see so much ridiculous actions after the fact, because that wasn't part of the plan.
No.
Everything up to that point was well executed, well thought out, and well planned. Everything after that neck wound appeared was on the fly.
Yeah. They were improvising as they go.
Yeah.
Would a bullet be captured on any video frames?
No.
Yeah.
It'd be very unlikely. It would have to be like a subsonic round, and it would need to be a big round. Like, none of what we saw is any indication of Charlie being struck by a bullet,
right?
On a subsonic bullet.
Yeah, and I think people may be referencing like early videos that came out where they thought they saw a bullet in a frame.
There was insects everywhere in that day. There's like 2 or 3 different types of bugs. I don't know if anybody's ever been to that area of the country during that fall. But it's like there's flyers everywhere. Like the bugs are just like, it's getting cold. They're freaking out. They're looking for somewhere to go. If you're out and about and you have a tent or anywhere for them to land on, they're going to be all over it.
Yeah. Elizabeth is saying, thank you, John. Maybe the van door opening was a clear signal.
Yeah. And then you have the van flood arm thing. It all like happens. And it all happens within such a tight period of time. And if someone was on the roof or whatever, and they weren't using this wireless comms, like you would need a physical signal that was clear enough that you would know that you were clear to fire. And why would they need to say, make sure that nobody was going to be walking in front of the bullet, like you said? And the person that's taking the shot, they know they have clear line of shot.
That's what I was going to say too. Like for us down on the level that people were walking, you see people that you think from your vantage they would be in the way, but from wherever this person might have been, to them, if they would know that no one's in the way, even if they're moving around, like it wouldn't matter to them that someone's walking around because it's not obstructing the path of the bullet from their perspective.
And where the van was and where the gravel disruption is on the roof where they say supposedly the shot came from, there's absolutely a clear line of shot. Like you can see right in the back of that van from where you see the gravel disrupted and the flags. And another point is that where you see that gravel disrupted is too far back off the roof line for someone to take a shot from a prone position. They're not on the edge of the roof to be able to take a prone position off the edge. It would need to be someone either on their knees or standing further back to be able to take that shot. So, the whole picture of the guy in prone position that the one guy caught, there's no way that guy took the shot. No, but he definitely laid up there because you can see the imprint of his body on the gravel. But then you see over to the right of it, you see somewhere where someone was on their knees or on their feet because there's just small disruptance. Right, you could see there's a lot more action that happened in that area than the area where the guy was laying prone. So I think that again, just to tighten the narrative up, what do you need? Like, all right, a guy took a shot from the roof. Well, is there any videos of it? Yeah, we got a video of a guy sitting there laying prone on the edge where someone could see him from the sidewalk, but not close enough to edge to actually take the shot where the security could see him and maybe someone stop it before it happened, right? So the roof kind of like lines up with the idea that someone may have just took a ruse shot into the back of the van.
But if there was 2 people on the roof, what about the video of the roof?
I think it was just one person on the roof. I think they just had or there was the person on the roof was just there to get the video, just to get the video of the guy in prone position and the guy running off the roof. And they may not even taken the shot because to be honest with you, the roof is further away than what my calculations say the shot came from.
That was going to be my next question is based on like what you've done or maybe anyone else, have they tried to triangulate and then backtrace where the bullet came from?
Yeah, I've had people do like solid work trying to like disprove what I was coming up with. And whether they knew it or not, they gave me more data that tied it even closer. Like we came up with the same conclusion, 127 meters.
Where do you think it came from?
All I can say is an elevated position. And the problem is that we're speculating on the speed of the bullet.
Okay.
Based
So
on what, the N wave?
yeah, the N wave, how the delay between the N wave and the muzzle blast. Nobody needs to
Right.
speculate on the speed of sound, right? That's
Right.
unknown. But how long
Yeah,
that bullet
it's a
took
set. It doesn't
from
change.
leave the rifle to arrive at the area depends on the speed of the round, and we can only speculate on what the speed of the round was. I'm pretty sure it's a 30 caliber because of the frequency that the ballistic gel created, but we don't know the speed of the round. And 30-06 varies. You know, you can get a lot of different round speeds depending on what you're shooting, and there's tons of different 30 caliber rounds. It didn't have to be a
Right.
30-06 that was actually fired.
Oh my
Yeah, I
goodness.
believe it's like
Why is
100.
my-
And from the official position, they say they've changed a lot. You don't get one figure, but from the best figure I've seen is like 147 yards, which is, you know, it's like a 20-yard discrepancy.
I was gonna. I don't know. My freaking browser's not working great right now. It's gonna be all delayed. It's not gonna let me pull in. Oh, here we go. Come on. All right, forget. I'm not doing it right now. My internet's not behaving. So, I'll put yours back up. Did you have any other slides you wanted to show?
Nothing that might not get you in trouble. That's where
Okay.
I'm getting
Okay,
into the
that's fine.
area of
Where it shows
potential.
too much.
Yeah, it shows too much. I tried to clip it
Okay.
down, but we're getting into the danger zone with most of that.
Okay.
But you know, if anybody wants to see like any of this work, any of this forensic,
Yeah.
follow the epicenter.com. I have my complete pipeline script. You can download this script, run it on your computer. I have my source files. You can download the files. You can run this, come up the same, you know, data, plug my code into, you know, AI. That's one good thing AI is good for. Asking random facts that it's going to pull up data from news sources or Reddit, you'll get lots of lies. But when it comes to
Right.
coding and running data, AI is very, very good. Have it look at the coding, ask it what it does, ask if it would be accurate, you know, and then run it for yourself or improve it. Better yet, ask if
Right.
there's a way to make it better and see, you know, if there's a angle of the data that I haven't looked at. We're going to have to do this work ourselves. We can't depend on the government to give us the truth, or we can't depend on, you know, Tyler Robertson's defense team to spend any extra time trying to prove his innocence or prove a narrative different than what they're just going to, you know.
Do you think that they're like self-sabotaging intentionally?
I mean, they're not going to work overtime to try to save this kid. They're just going to, you know, go through the motions, make it seem like they're doing something. And, you know, you look at their actions, they're just trying to keep it secret more than anything else. It seems to be their main concern is making sure that we don't know much about it. So that doesn't like leave me a lot of confidence.
No. You would think it would be the opposite, in my opinion. You would think.
Yeah, and anybody around the event, they know that anything they say or do is just going to be misconstrued, and so
Right.
you know, I see why his parents are quiet. I wouldn't want anything they say is just going to be twisted.
Yeah. Other than actually recreating the event, is there anything you're still questioning or not 100% on regarding your theory?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the device that they used. I know the energy came from around the microphone, but I'm not sure of that. I'm not 100% sure it was a shape charged. It could have been any, you know, it could be technology we don't know about.
Right.
I know it penetrated his chest. I know what frequencies I can measure. I know what I can see and record and measure. Outside of that, everything's speculation. And I try my best not to go into speculation other than just to try to explain the things that I've seen, measured, and recorded.
On your video and audio that you use, do you think that any of that could have been tampered with before it got to you?
There's definitely tampered files, and I've done my best to eliminate using them. There's a few angles that have been processed that make them seem like they have stereo sound when it's an absolute mono channel. And so, there's videos that have color grading that like shifts as the video goes on. And that's like a telltale sign of AI. Whatever reason, when AI processes videos or pictures, like it does weird color gradings to it. And the more it's processed, the more like color shift that it does. And my initial technique to eliminate any possible kind of like manipulation of videos was consistency between the videos. But even that proved to be inconsistent because the speed of the event, some angles capture frames that the others don't because it's in between shutter speeds. So there was videos that I initially thought were faked or modified that turned out to be absolutely 100% authentic. But I have a pipeline made that basically can map the acoustic environment, and any audio I can 100% know if it's been manipulated or not, just because there's that environment acoustically is very unique and it leaves certain fingerprints. Like just looking at the audio, I can map that there's an overpass behind Charlie and that there's two like solid walls to the left and right of it. Just from the recordings, they'll leave certain like audio fingerprints from it.
Yeah.
And so running that is how I was able to identify a few of the audio channels that were kind of manipulated and faked to make it seem like they were stereo channels when they were mono, because AI is very lazy. So it does as little work as possible. So instead of faking two channels of unique audio, it just makes a single fake channel of unique audio and splits it in half to make it look like stereo, but they're identical. And there's no way you get an actual recording with two microphones that are identical. So that's one of the ways you can kind of pick it out. The video's a little trickier. Like I said, it's just little subtle things like that. But as far as I can tell, all the data that I've run on the videos that I use, they're authentic. So.
Cool. We got another one here. We got Mermaid in Motion sends her love to all the male men. I think that's a joke from the Arkansas, Club America event where Erica Kirk said, white mailmen.
Mailman,
yeah. Especially if you're there you go. Especially if you're a white mailman. Always. Thanks. And I gotta say, so everyone's at a different part in this, what they believe and don't believe, right? And up till today, I hadn't really seen. I've been very, very skeptical of that a round was actually fired that day and that a bullet went anywhere. But now that I think, not just what you said today, which did a good job to push me in a certain direction. I remember now the source of the individual that was so adamant that this could not be true. And that person has come to become someone that I just don't trust whatsoever. And so now knowing that, now I don't trust the information. And so it definitely moved me in the direction of believing a actual round was fired that day and a bullet traveled through the air. So,
yeah, I think it would just be really risky for you not to do it. Like they have to learn from their previous events. And
did Butler not have one?
Oh, Butler had a bunch of bullets fired.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what they know, that people will not only track them, but they'll accessibly look for additional bullets and try to see where they're from. Like it's a low hanging fruit. An N wave is loud and it's a unique frequency. A muzzle blast equally is loud, and it's a metric that you can put good math to, because sound at a certain atmosphere and temperature travels at a set speed. So it's like you can put good math to it. You can, from the distance, the delta T between that N wave passing and that muzzle blast, outside the variable of the bullet speed, you can put a pretty good position on it. And so that's a dangerous tool just to have out there in the wild. And it's not one you would just leave out it's like, it would just be asking yourself to get
to get called out for it.
To not have it in the audio and the videos.
Exactly.
That we
Yeah. Especially when it only builds for your case. If you can, you
Right.
know, yeah.
If you could time it right, if you can get all of the math right and the,
And if you need a body somewhere running off anyway, it just ties to it better. I mean, look at the little bit of data that they've given us from the event, how compelling it is to most people that just look at it as a glance. On the surface, it's pretty compelling narrative. I mean, they video the guy walking around, video of a guy jumping off a roof. We know a rifle shot was made. Look, video of a picture of a rifle in the woods. So, you put the pieces together, people fill in the blanks. And that's basically, they have a lot of blanks, but they have a lot of pieces in between the blanks. And that's enough for most people to believe it.
Well, and like the brain is a processor, right? And we naturally want to solve puzzles. We want to take disorder and we want to organize it. Then the brain doesn't like leaving things not in its place. And so a lot of time the brain is going to fit things in places, whether or not it even has all the information to even do that. And so if they just give you enough video clips of like, well, look at the person's walking and, oh, here's walking up the steps. And then they tell you this other information. Then you see the video of what happened, right? And then you see a couple videos of the after. The brain and then you have the narrative. It just fills it in. And for most people, I mean, if you look at what happened with Gary and Zach, as many people believe that don't believe the official narrative, there's just as many, maybe even more that actually believe the official narrative. And so it obviously is compelling enough to a lot of people, and so it makes it very plausible and reasonable that people would realize they could pull something like this off, because for the most part they have, even with the big variable that happened that day that they couldn't really account for.
Yeah, I mean, we're pre-programmed for it. Like, how many times have we heard a rifle shot, seen someone get shot? It's just like your brain's just like, oh, I've seen this pattern before. I know what this is. Like, you just go back to the last thing that you saw as the main like piece that you're going to use to solve the equation. Like, you're left with the equation. You use the thing you used last to solve it. Like, oh well, heard a rifle, saw a guy get hit by something. He was bleeding. He got shot. They say he got shot. Here's a picture of a rifle. Here's a picture of the dude took the shot. Like, that's all most people need.
Yeah. Did you do a lot on the I wasn't around, like I wasn't paying a lot of attention with the whole Butler PA thing. Have you ever used your skills and looked into that?
I've thought about taking the pipelines that I've made and running in on it, but nobody's life is in
danger. Right now. 100%. But I mean,
I learned more about how you can spin a narrative and content farm off of speculative information from the Butler PA.
Oh, interesting.
Then I learned from watching that unfold. Like, I'm of the age where I've been through like psych op after psych op, right? It's just like I'm a seasoned psych op veteran, and I've always been a cute sense to kind of like sniff them out. And so the Butler PA event was just the opposite of that, where my focus was usually on the government pulling the psych ops. For some reason, like, I just caught the vapors of like this new wave of using events as a means to create like a media kind of like, it's almost like it's a short story that they create. Like, they just find a few things that you can speculate on. That's nothing concrete, so you can keep it going for a while, and they just feed into the speculation and people's wonder, wanting to know more about it. And it's not about solving the problem; it's about presenting more questions. And so it's just always more questions. There's no diving deep into the details that you already have, because if you dive deep enough, you'll find the answer. If you find the answer, then the arc of the story is over, right? The idea is to keep the arc going as long as you can. So it's like, playing hacky sack. They're just constantly trying to keep the hacky sack in the air so they can just keep the speculation and the arc of the story going for as long as possible. Because at the end of the day, like, views are monetized now. So, if you can keep people's attention regardless if you believe what you're saying or not, you can make money from it. So, answers don't keep attention. You get an answer, it's a
Closes the
sealed
loop.
done. It's closed, it's done. That arc is over. Now you have to go and find a new thing.
A whole new thing.
So it's while people's attentions look like they're trying to come to a conclusion, in reality is the opposite of what they're trying to do. They're trying to extend the conclusion out into forever, because the longer they can keep it going, the longer they can keep you speculating, and the more outside influence they can bring in and have you chasing this or that and other, the longer they can keep it running, and that is the opposite of what I'm trying to accomplish. Like, I'm trying to come to a finite end of this. Like, this is not something I want to do with my life. Like, I come on here because like people's lives are in danger. Like, someone's life was taken. Like, this is why my time is put here. Like, I'm not I'm a pretty private person. Like, I don't like even looking into the details of this. While it's a challenge for me, and I have a hyper focused mind, and I like pouring over, and I like coming up to solutions to problems. I don't want to go against the government. I don't want to try to fight some conspiracy, but nobody else is going to do it. So, at the end of the day, like, I'll do it until someone else does a better job of it. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't help but apply what you just said to, like the news media doing that, and what's happening right now. That some of that's happening right now.
Oh, look at JFK. There's people that made whole careers off of speculating what happened to JFK. It's like a genius to look at the scenario around him to figure out what happened. But nobody wants to just have a finite end to it and be like, oh yeah, these people are probably involved and we'll never know about it, because that just shuts the book on it. Like, they'd just rather keep going.
Yeah. Do you think anyone actually tried to? I mean, have you seen what the rabbis are saying in Philly right now about Trump being pierced in the ear, being fulfillment to prophetic prophecy, that he is the non-Jewish like John the Baptist? He's like the anointed one that leads the way for the actual Jewish Messiah. They're all talking about this in Philly right now. Different rabbis saying that because he was pierced in the ear, that points to fulfillment of prophecy. Do you think they actually were trying to, like, someone was trying to take him out that day, or that?
No, they did that so they're self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
They don't believe anything they say.
Right.
It's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, open the Bible up and read it. You can read any chapter, any book. It's just a story of the Jews disobeying God, trying to self-fulfill prophecy to make things happen for their own means, and paying the price for it. And we'll just see that unfold over and over again. Like, there's nothing new about it. Like, don't listen to what someone tells you about the Bible. Go and open the Bible and read it. The Bible should be called Jews Acting Badly. That's what the Bible should be called, because that's what it's full of.
It is. It's the story.
It's full of Jews taking slaves, disobeying God, worshiping idols. It's just and we're still going to see it over and over again. It's not a pattern that's going to break. No. And the more they can use people's foolishness of expecting a Messiah to come, the more they'll fall for whatever antichrist figure they bring up into play. People will just buy it hook, line, and sinker, and fall right in line with it, and go get their mark and the whole nine. But anybody that uses their own eyes and their own ears that God gave them, and they listen to their heart and they use their own mind, will come to a different conclusion. And more than likely we'll all be punished for it. But you know what? That's the path. You should do. I don't worry about. People ask me if I'm fearful, but like, any punishment I receive for this will only be, my treasures that come after this. So, I'm not worried about my treasures that aren't in this life, this material realm. This is a world of suffering. It's a world of deceit. You have to live for something beyond this world. Otherwise, your life's just going to come to an end one day, and it'll just be shallow, and you'll be in the dirt. So if you live with something that's longer than this, and you do good works, and you look out for other people, and you put other people's well-being before your own, and you'll be rewarded for that. And that's, that's kind of like, I'm putting Tyler Robertson's well-being above my own. And I don't think he's innocent. I think he's probably misguided and he had something to do with it, but he's not a murderer. He's falsely accused and they're going to kill him for it. And, you know, I'm not going to sit back idly by and let that happen without trying to prevent it. And so that's what I'm doing.
You think he played some sort of peripheral role in this?
Absolutely. I think he was groomed. I think he probably brought his grandpa's rifle. He probably etched those bullets and he thought he was going to give it to someone else and they were going to take the shot. Yeah.
I thought that he played some sort of like he thought he was playing some sort of role in this, but they ultimately had a different plan of what role he was playing.
Yeah, he didn't know. He would never like do that knowing he's going to be the fall guy for it.
No. Because I also don't think he was ever on campus. It looks like he was near campus. It looks like there's a lot of he
was following somebody around in a car. They were taking him around to certain places here and there so he could be seen on camera.
Correct.
And, they had somebody that looked close enough to him walking around campus that they could be plausible that he was there. And I think he drove through campus, but I don't think, and he definitely wasn't in the bushes texting his lover that old guy got nabbed, but it wasn't him. And they arrested. Like, how is a kid in the bushes hiding from the police? No minute to minute details of what they're doing. Like, it doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. All right. I think we got through all the super chats and we made it through everything. Do you have anything in closing you want to say before we sign off?
No, we just if anybody has any unanswered questions, go to my X. There's just troves of information on there. If you want to go deep, go to followtheepicenter.com. I update that as much as I can. I have a whole lot of work that I'm doing in the background. I don't like to release anything till it's pretty refined, but you know, there's I've been working diligently.
Right.
And if anybody wants to support my work, I'm able to pay for the computers I run for forensics on, all my engines. It's the facility I'm in right now is me and my wife's own business, Blue Mountain Farm, OK.com. We make self-care products. We try to do good works and make things that people need to, you know, live a happy and healthy life and replace these corporate stop products that are killing us with ingredients that you can't pronounce and you never just face no repercussions for it. So if you have a sensitivity, if you know the medical industrial complex has failed you and you're suffering in your life, go look at our website. We might have a solution for you. You know, we just use very basic, easy to understand techniques, and they make a lot of difference to people. People are receiving very well, and we're very blessed for all the support that we have. And that's what keeps us running. That's what allows me to stay with my family, homeschool my kids, live a simple life and do good works for people. And that's, you know, I hope I can continue to do that. And I appreciate anybody that has supported me. God bless you. I appreciate it. It's made all the difference in our lives. And hopefully we can, you know, make a difference in everyone's lives, and we can bring some truth and justice into this country once again. Yeah.
100%. You said bluemountainfarms.com?
Blue Mountain Farm. Okay.
Okay. bluemountainfarmok.com. Yep. And then on X, Jon Aaron Bray?
Jon Aaron Bray on X, Jon Aaron Bray on Instagram. Yep. Jon Bray something or another on YouTube. My videos just get smashed. So if you find them, better enjoy them.
Yeah. YouTube doesn't let you get away with anything.
No.
But make sure to give him a follow and to support his work. We definitely need to support one another, people that are out there trying to do the right thing. Well, I thank you so much for coming on my show today, man. It was a true blessing. Thank you for sharing everything with me. Everyone, thank you guys so much for showing up, and God bless you guys. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right.
See you guys. Thanks.